What happens when you give unlimited money to someone who has nothing? This isn't a feel-good fairy tale. This is about a billionaire's cruel experiment that nearly killed a man. About a father who would rather starve than let his son go hungry. About a decision that took 30 seconds to make and 6 months to understand. If you want to see how far desperation can push the human heart and how deep redemption can go, stay until the end. Hit that like button and drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this story travels. This is where it begins. On the coldest morning of the year, the city woke up wrong that Tuesday. Not gradually, the way cities usually do, with deliveries and commuters and the slow hum of commerce stirring to life. No, this was different. The kind of cold that arrives overnight like a verdict. The kind that makes metal contract and glass crack and every breath feel like swallowing razor blades. 6:17 a.m., 22 degrees Fahrenheit. Wind chill making it feel closer to 8. Camille Laurent stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of her penthouse office, 43 stories above the streets she rarely walked, watching the city shimmer under a layer of frost that looked almost beautiful from this distance. Almost. She held a bone china cup, imported, hand-painted, worth more than most people made in a week, and took a sip of coffee that had already gone lukewarm. She didn't notice. Her mind was elsewhere. Numbers. Always numbers. The Riverside Development Project. 18 million square feet of mixed-use space. Projected ROI of 37% over 5 years. 312 families displaced. 467 low-income housing units demolished. The mayor's office was dragging its feet on final approvals, worried about optics, about backlash, about people. Camille set the cup down harder than she meant to. The sound echoed in the empty office. People. She'd built an empire by understanding one fundamental truth. People were predictable. Give them the right incentive, they'd move. Apply the right pressure, they'd break. Offer them enough money, they'd forget their principles faster than you could draft the contract. It wasn't cynicism, it was pattern recognition. Data across thousands of transactions, hundreds of deals, decades of watching human behavior reduce itself to the same basic equations. Her phone buzzed, a text from Marcus, her assistant. Car is downstairs. Meeting with Alderman Chen in 40 minutes. She didn't respond, just grabbed her coat, cashmere, midnight blue, tailored to perfection, and headed for the elevator. The lobby was quiet. Too early for most of the building's tenants. Her heels clicked against marble that cost $400 per square foot. The doorman nodded as she passed. She didn't acknowledge him, didn't mean it personally. She just didn't see him. Not really. He was part of the architecture, like the marble, like the abstract sculpture in the corner that some consultant had insisted would make a statement. The cold hit her the moment she stepped outside. Actually hit her, like a physical thing. She inhaled sharply, feeling it burn through her sinuses, and for half a second she understood why weather like this killed people. Not metaphorically, actually killed them. Her driver had the Mercedes running, exhaust forming clouds in the frozen air, 20 feet away. She started toward it. That's when she saw him. At first he was just another shape, another piece of urban furniture her brain had learned to filter out, the way you stop seeing fire hydrants or mailboxes after a while. But something made her look. Maybe the way he was hunched against the building, trying to shield the small figure beside him from the wind. Maybe the desperate stillness of someone who's been in the same spot too long. A man. 30s, maybe? Hard to tell under the layers of clothing that weren't quite enough. Jeans worn through at the knees, a jacket that might have been black once, now sun-faded to gray. No gloves. Hands shoved deep in his pockets. And next to him, a boy. 6 years old, maybe 7, wearing a coat that was too big, sleeves rolled up clumsily, a knit cap pulled down low. His face was pressed against his father's side. Even from 15 feet away, Camille could see the kid shivering. They had a sign. Cardboard, the writing done in marker that was starting to fade. Homeless vet. Anything helps. God bless. Camille stopped. She didn't mean to. Her car was right there, warm, waiting. The meeting with Chen was important, crucial even. 18 million square feet was at stake. But something in her brain caught on the scene in front of her, snagged on it. The man wasn't asking, wasn't making eye contact with anyone. He just stood there, one hand on his son's shoulder, staring at nothing. That's what did it. The resignation, the absolute absence of hope in his posture. Camille had seen poverty before. Of course she had. You couldn't operate in real estate development without encountering it. But there was something about the tableau in front of her that felt different. The child, maybe. The way the father was positioned, body angled to block the wind, taking the brunt of it himself. She felt something move in her chest. Not sympathy exactly. Something colder, more curious. An idea. It formed quickly, the way her best ideas always did. Fully structured, with implications branching out in multiple directions before she'd even decided whether to act on it. She walked over. The man didn't notice her at first. Didn't notice anything. His eyes were fixed on some middle distance, glazed over in that way that comes from too many hours in the cold, too many days of the same thing. But the boy saw her. His head turned, and there was something in his expression, not fear exactly, more like wariness. The look of a kid who's learned that adult attention can go wrong fast. "Excuse me," Camille said. The man's head snapped up. His eyes came into focus, and for a second she saw him actually see her. Take in the coat, the jewelry, the leather bag that cost more than a used car. She watched his expression shift. Confusion first, then guardedness, then something that might have been embarrassment. "I don't want any trouble," he said immediately. His voice was hoarse, roughened by cold and disuse. We're not bothering anyone. We'll move if... I'm not asking you to move." He blinked. Didn't know what to do with that. Camille reached into her bag, found her wallet. She had maybe $60 in cash. She rarely carried much. Everything was cards and transfers and accounts, but that wasn't what she was reaching for anyway. She pulled out a credit card. Black, sleek, no credit limit. The man stared at it. "Take this," she said. "What?" "Take it. Use it however you want." He didn't move, just kept staring like she was speaking a language he didn't know. "I don't," he started. "What's the catch?" "No catch." "Lady, I don't know what kind of..." "There's no scam, no hidden camera, no strings." She held the card out further. "I'm serious. Use it. Buy whatever you want, whatever you need. I'm curious what you'll do with it." That last part slipped out before she could stop it. The honesty of it, because that's what this was, wasn't it? Curiosity. Pure and simple. She wanted to know. Wanted to see what happened when you gave someone with nothing access to everything. Would he be smart, reckless, grateful? Would he squander it on the first stupid thing he saw, or would he make it last? It was an experiment. A real-time case study in human behavior under sudden resource abundance. The man took a step back. "I'm not taking your credit card." "Why not?" Because that's insane. I don't know you. You don't know me. What if I max it out?" "Then you max it out. What if I drain your bank account?" "I have several." He looked at her like she was dangerous. Maybe she was. "This is some kind of test," he said quietly. Smart, she thought. Smarter than she'd expected. "Maybe," she admitted. "Does that matter?" "Yeah, it matters." "Why?" He didn't have an answer for that, or if he did, he wasn't sharing it. The boy tugged on his father's sleeve. "Dad?" The man looked down at his son, and something in his face changed, softened and hardened at the same time, if that was possible. When he looked back up at Camille, there was something new in his expression, something calculating. "If I take this," he said slowly, "you're not going to call the cops on me? Say I stole it? No. You're not going to track where I use it and show up with cameras? No. Then why?" Camille considered lying, considered saying something about charity or goodwill or the spirit of giving, but there was something about the way he was looking at her, direct, unflinching, that made her tell the truth. "Because I want to see what you do with it," she said simply. That's all. The silence stretched between them. Behind them, a bus hissed to a stop and pulled away. Someone shouted something 3 blocks over. The wind picked up, and the boy pressed closer to his father. Finally, the man reached out and took the card. His fingers were red from the cold, the skin rough and cracked. He held the piece of plastic like it might explode. "I'm Derek," he said after a moment. "Derek Hayes." This is my son, Evan. Camille Laurent. She watched his eyes register the name, recognition flickering across his face. Of course he knew who she was. Everyone knew who she was. Laurent Development. The woman tearing down half the West Side to build luxury condos. You're the one, he started, then stopped himself. Yes, she said. I'm the one. Another beat of silence. Derek looked down at the card in his hand, then at his son, then back at Camille. I don't understand this, he said quietly. You don't have to. Yeah, I think I do. Camille checked her watch. She was going to be late to Chen's office. The Riverside Project, 18 million square feet, 312 families, all of it waiting while she stood on a freezing sidewalk having an argument with a homeless man about whether he should accept unlimited money. The absurdity of it struck her. She almost smiled. Use the card or don't, she said. Your choice, but I'm not taking it back. She turned to go. Wait. She stopped, looked back. Derek was staring at the card with an expression she couldn't quite read. How long do I have? What? How long before you cancel it? Before this, whatever this is, ends? I don't know, Camille said honestly. Until I'm done watching, I suppose. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. She walked back to the car, got in. The driver pulled into traffic without needing to be told. Through the tinted window, she watched Derek Hayes stand there on the sidewalk, holding the black credit card in his bare hand, his son pressed against his side, both of them motionless in the frozen morning. She pulled out her phone, sent a quick text to Marcus. Running 10 minutes late, start without me. Then she opened her banking app and put an alert on the card. Every transaction she wanted to know, every purchase, every decision. The experiment had begun. Derek Hayes stood on the corner for a full 3 minutes after the Mercedes disappeared into traffic, staring at the credit card in his hand like it was a live grenade. This wasn't real, couldn't be real. People didn't just hand out unlimited money to strangers on the street, especially not people like Camille Laurent, whose face had been on the cover of Forbes last year, who owned half the city's skyline, who'd made $1 billion doing things Derek didn't entirely understand. Dad? Evan's voice pulled him back. He looked down at his son, his beautiful, too thin, too quiet son, and felt the familiar weight settle back onto his shoulders, the weight that never left, not even in sleep. It's okay, buddy, Derek said automatically. The lie came easy now. Practice. Is that a real credit card? I think so. Are we going to use it? Good question, Evan. Really good question. Derek's first instinct was to throw it away. Toss it in the nearest trash can and forget this ever happened. Because nothing good came from people like Camille Laurent. The rich didn't give you something for nothing. There was always an angle, always a catch, always some way it came back to hurt you. He'd learned that the hard way. But then Evan shivered, a deep, full-body shudder that Derek felt through his coat. And the calculus changed. It had been below freezing for 3 nights running. The shelter was full. They'd spent last night in the doorway of a closed laundromat. Derek wrapped around Evan, trying to use his own body to block the wind. Evan hadn't complained. He never complained. That was the worst part. 6 years old, and he'd already learned not to ask for things. Derek looked at the card again. What if it was real? What if, for once in his spectacularly imploding life, something actually worked out? He pulled out his phone, cracked screen, battery at 8%, a prepaid plan that gave him barely enough data to check email, and Googled the nearest grocery store. 7 blocks. He could walk that. They'd walked further. Come on, he said, taking Evan's hand. Let's go. Where are we going? To see if this thing works. The grocery store was warm. That was the first thing Derek noticed. The second was the smell. Bread baking somewhere in the back, coffee brewing at the deli counter, the faint sweetness of produce. Evan's stomach growled loud enough that the greeter heard it. Welcome to Morrison's, she said cheerfully, then looked at them more carefully. Her smile faltered for half a second before the customer service training kicked back in. Can I help you find anything? No, thank you. We're fine. They weren't fine. Derek knew how they looked. He'd caught their reflection in the store window on the way in. A man who hadn't shaved in 2 weeks, wearing clothes he'd been sleeping in, and a child whose coat was held together with duct tape. The other shoppers were already giving them a wide berth. He grabbed a cart, pushed it forward. Evan walked beside him, quiet, taking everything in with those big eyes that missed nothing. Derek's hands were shaking. He told himself it was from the cold, but that was only part of it. Start small, he thought. Something cheap. Something that wouldn't trigger fraud alerts if this whole thing was some kind of setup. He headed for the bread aisle, grabbed a loaf of wheat bread, $3.49, then peanut butter, then jelly. Basic, simple. The kind of thing that wouldn't raise questions. At the pharmacy counter, he grabbed children's multivitamins. Evan needed vitamins, needed them desperately. Derek had watched his son get paler over the last month, watched him slow down, watched the light dim in his eyes. The vitamins were $12. He put them in the cart. Then he saw the cold medicine. Evan had been coughing for a week. Not terrible, not pneumonia level, but getting worse. The kind of cough that came from sleeping in doorways, from being cold and damp for too long. The medicine was $18 for the good stuff, the kind that actually worked. Derek hesitated, looked at the cart in his hand, looked at his son, put the medicine in the cart. They moved through the store slowly. Derek was doing math in his head, adding up the total, waiting for the moment when this all revealed itself as a mistake, or a trap, or a fever dream. But Evan was here, solid and real beside him, and the cart was getting fuller. Milk, eggs, fruit, actual fruit, the kind Derek hadn't been able to afford in months. Apples, bananas, a container of strawberries that Evan stared at like they were diamonds. "Can we really get those?" Evan whispered. Derek's throat tightened. "Yeah, buddy, we can get those." Warm clothes. That's what they needed most. He pushed the cart to the clothing section. Morrison's wasn't Macy's, but they had basics. He found a winter coat for Evan, a real one, puffy and insulated and bright blue. Found gloves, a hat that wasn't falling apart, thermal underwear, thick socks. For himself, he grabbed almost nothing, a package of white undershirts, socks. That was it. "Dad, you need a coat too," Evan said. "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You're shaking." Derek looked at his son. When had he gotten so observant, and felt something crack in his chest? "Later," he said. "Let's get you taken care of first." They went to the toy section. Derek hadn't planned on it, didn't mean to. But they were walking past it on the way to checkout, and Evan's steps slowed. His eyes caught on something. A book. Not a toy. A book. Where the Wild Things Are. Derek remembered reading that to him, back when they had an apartment, back when bedtime was a routine and not a question of where they'd sleep, back when Derek was still a person and not just a problem to be solved. "You want that?" Derek asked. Evan shook his head, too fast. "It's okay. Evan, we probably shouldn't." Derek grabbed the book, put it in the cart, then grabbed 3 more. Chapter books, picture books, anything that looked interesting. Evan's eyes went wide. "Dad, we're getting books." "But no buts. You need books." Because that was something Derek could still give him. Not stability, not a home, not a normal childhood, but books, education, something that mattered. At checkout, Derek's hands were shaking so hard he almost couldn't hold the card. The cashier was young, maybe 19. She rang up the items with mechanical efficiency, not looking at them. The total climbed. $60, $90, $120, $170, $183.47. She held out the card reader. "Whenever you're ready." Derek swiped the card, held his breath. The machine beeped. Approved. He stared at the screen. "Sir?" the cashier said. "Do you want your receipt?" "What?" "Your receipt. Do you want it?" "Oh, yeah. Yes, thank you." She handed it to him, already looking past them to the next customer. Derek stood there, bags in hand, trying to process what just happened. It worked. The card worked. Camille Laurent had actually given him a functioning unlimited credit card, and it had worked. "Dad?" Evan tugged his sleeve. "Can we go?" Yeah, let's go. Outside, the cold felt different. Still brutal, still dangerous, but less absolute. Derek found a bench 2 blocks away. They sat down. He opened the bags. First, the coat. He helped Evan out of the old one, the duct-taped disaster that had been 2 sizes too small, and into the new one. Zipped it up, put the gloves on his hands, the hat on his head. Evan looked like a different kid, like a kid whose father wasn't failing him. "How's that feel?" Derek asked. "Warm," Evan said quietly. Then, louder. "Really warm." Derek opened the strawberries, handed the container to Evan, watched his son eat them one at a time, savoring each bite in a way that made Derek want to cry. He pulled out his phone, looked at the card again, thought about everything they needed, everything he'd been unable to provide. This was dangerous. He knew it was dangerous. Camille Laurent wasn't doing this out of kindness. She'd said it herself. She wanted to see what he'd do. She was watching. This was an experiment, and Derek and Evan were the lab rats. But here's the thing about being desperate. You take the help even when you know it's poisoned. You take it because the alternative is watching your child freeze. Derek made a list on his phone. Careful, calculated. Everything they needed to survive. First, medicine. Real medicine. For Evan's cough. For the vitamin deficiency Derek had diagnosed himself from Googling symptoms at the library. For the dental pain Derek had been ignoring for 3 months because dentists cost money he didn't have. Second, warm place to sleep, even one night. A motel room, a cheap one, somewhere with heat and a bed and a door that locked. Third, food. Enough to last. Canned goods, rice, things that wouldn't spoil. Things they could carry. He wouldn't abuse this. Wouldn't go crazy. Wouldn't prove her right about whatever she expected him to do. But he would use it. Had to. Because Evan was eating strawberries like they were precious, and Derek would do anything to keep that kid alive. By evening, they had a motel room. Derek had walked past 5 different places before settling on one. Not the cheapest. Those looked dangerous, the kind of places where you woke up without your shoes. Not the nicest. That would feel wrong somehow. Too much. Like he was taking advantage. Middle tier. Clean enough. $48 a night. The woman at the desk didn't ask questions. Just took the card, swiped it, handed over a key. Room 14. Ground floor. 2 double beds. A bathroom with a door that closed. A TV that probably worked. Heat that was actually heat. Evan stood in the doorway, not moving. "What's wrong?" Derek asked. "Is this ours?" "For tonight, it is." "Really? Really?" Evan walked in slowly, like the room might disappear if he moved too fast. He touched the bed, the blanket, sat down carefully, bounced once, testing it. "It's soft," he said. Derek set the bags down. "Yeah, buddy, it is. Can I take a shower?" You can take 10 showers if you want." Evan disappeared into the bathroom. Derek heard the water start, heard his son make a small sound of happiness that would haunt him for the rest of his life. While Evan showered, Derek unpacked the groceries, put the milk in the mini fridge, lined up the medicine on the nightstand, stacked the books on the other bed. His phone rang. He didn't recognize the number, almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. "Hello? Mr. Hayes?" Man's voice, professional, unfamiliar. "Who is this?" "My name is Marcus Chen. I work for Ms. Laurent. She asked me to check in with you." Derek's stomach dropped. "I haven't done anything wrong." "No one said you did. I'm just calling to see if you need anything." "Need anything?" "The card is working? No issues?" No, it's working." "Good. Ms. Laurent wanted me to let you know that if you have any problems, if the card gets declined or you run into any trouble, you can call this number." Derek pulled the phone away from his ear, looked at it like it was malfunctioning, put it back. "Why would she do that?" "I'm sorry? Why would she give me a customer service number? What does she get out of this?" Silence on the other end. Then, "I don't know, Mr. Hayes. I just work for her." "But you must have some idea, see." "I really don't. Is there anything else I can help you with?" Derek wanted to ask 100 questions. wanted to demand answers, but he heard the shower turn off, heard Evan humming something. "No," Derek said. "We're fine. Thank you." He hung up, stared at the card on the nightstand. "What are you doing, Camille Laurent? What am I to you?" Evan emerged from the bathroom wrapped in a towel, hair wet, skin pink from the heat. He looked younger, smaller, more fragile. "Dad?" "Yeah? Can we stay here tomorrow too?" Derek looked at his son, thought about the shelter with its waiting lists and its rules, thought about doorways and bus stops and freezing mornings, thought about Camille Laurent and her experiment and the trap he was probably walking into. "Yeah," he said, "we can stay." Evan smiled, actually smiled, and Derek thought, "I'll worry about the consequences tomorrow." Tonight, his son was warm and fed and safe. Tonight, that was enough. 3 days later, Derek sat in a diner at 2 in the morning, watching Evan sleep in the booth across from him, and tried to figure out what he was doing wrong. The card still worked, had worked every time. The motel room was paid through the end of the week. Evan had medicine, vitamins, clothes that fit. They'd eaten real meals, not just peanut butter sandwiches, but actual food from actual restaurants. Evan had gained back some color in his cheeks, and Derek felt like he was dying. Not metaphorically, actually dying. His hands shook constantly now. Not from cold, they were inside, it was warm, but from something else. His vision kept blurring at the edges. His chest hurt when he breathed too deep. He'd thrown up twice that morning and couldn't remember the last time he'd eaten anything more substantial than crackers. He told himself it was stress, told himself it was just his body adjusting after months of survival mode, told himself he'd be fine, but he wasn't fine. He looked at the receipt from their dinner. Evan had ordered pancakes, eggs, bacon, orange juice. Derek had ordered coffee. Just coffee. Evan hadn't noticed, or if he had, he hadn't said anything. Derek had spent $127.43 on Evan in the last 3 days. He'd spent $11.60 on himself. He pulled out his phone, looked at the list he'd made, started adding things up. Evan's medicine, $47.89. Evan's vitamins, $12.99. Evan's clothes, $83.47. Evan's books, $34.96. Motel, 3 nights so far, $144. Evan's meals, $71.42. Total, $394.73. His meals, 1 package of crackers, $3.89, 1 jar of peanut butter, $4.79, 1 loaf of bread, $2.92. Total, $11.60. The math didn't lie. He was taking care of Evan, doing everything right for Evan, and he was destroying himself in the process. Why? He knew why. Same reason he'd always had. Same reason he'd ended up on the streets in the first place. When resources got tight, when choices had to be made, Derek chose Evan. Every time, without thinking. It wasn't even a conscious decision anymore. It was just what he did. But this time was different, wasn't it? This time, there were no limited resources. The card worked. It kept working. He could buy food for himself, could take care of both of them. But every time he tried, every time he stood in a store looking at something for himself, he thought about Camille Laurent watching, thought about her experiment, thought about what she expected to see. She expected him to be greedy, to be wasteful, to prove whatever point she was trying to make about people like him. And he wouldn't do it. Wouldn't give her the satisfaction, even if it killed him. Across the booth, Evan stirred, his eyes fluttered open. "Dad?" "Right here, buddy." "What time is it?" "Late. You should go back to sleep." "Are you okay?" "You look..." "I'm fine." Evan sat up, rubbing his eyes. "You haven't been eating." "I ate." "Coffee isn't eating." "Smart kid. Too smart." "I'm just not that hungry." Derek lied. "Dad..." "Evan, I'm fine. I promise." But the lie sat between them like a third person in the booth. A waitress came by. Young, tired, probably working her second shift. "Can I get you anything else?" "No, thank you. Just the check." She dropped it on the table. $14.73. Derek put the credit card down without looking at it. As she walked away, Evan said quietly, "You could get something. Food, I mean. It's okay. I know. So why don't you?" How do you explain this to a 6-year-old? How do you explain that you're trying to prove something to a woman who doesn't care about you? That you're trying to maintain some kind of dignity in a situation designed to strip it away? That you'd rather starve than be someone's science project? Because you're more important, Derek said finally. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't have to. The waitress came back with the card. Derek signed the receipt. They left. Outside, the temperature had dropped again. 18 degrees. The wind cut through Derek's thin jacket like it wasn't there. He stumbled, caught himself on a parking meter. "Dad? I'm fine." "You're not fine. You almost fell." "Just tired." But it wasn't just tired. Something was wrong, really wrong. The edges of his vision were turning gray. His heart was doing something weird, skipping beats, racing, then slowing. They made it back to the motel, room 14. Derek unlocked the door, made sure Evan got inside, and then had to sit down because the room was spinning. "Dad, you're scaring me. I just need to... I'll be okay in a minute." But he wasn't okay in a minute. Wasn't okay in 5 minutes. Wasn't okay at all. The last thing Derek remembered before everything went dark was Evan's voice, small and terrified, saying his name. Then, nothing. Camille was in a meeting when her phone buzzed. Marcus again. 3rd time in an hour. She ignored it the first 2 times. The zoning board didn't care about her phone, and this presentation was crucial, but the 3rd time, something made her look. The text was short. "Need to talk. About the Hayes situation. Urgent." She excused herself, stepped into the hallway, called him back. "What is it?" "Derek Hayes is in the hospital." The words took a second to process. "What?" He collapsed. His son called 911. They admitted him to County General about 2 hours ago. Camille felt something cold move through her chest. What happened? Severe malnutrition, dehydration. They're still running tests, but the attending said it looks like he hasn't eaten properly in weeks, maybe months. That's not possible. He has the card. He's been using it. For his kid, not for himself. Marcus paused. "I pulled the transaction history like you asked. He spent $406. $394 of it was for the boy. Clothes, medicine, food. $12 for himself, total." Camille stood in the hallway, surrounded by expensive art and recessed lighting and climate-controlled air, and felt the bottom drop out of something she didn't have a name for. Where is he now? County General, 4th floor. The son's there too. Social services, don't let them take the kid. "Miss Laurent, I don't think we can... I'll handle it. I'm on my way." She hung up, went back into the conference room. Every face turned toward her. "I have to go," she said. "Miss Laurent, we're in the middle of..." "Reschedule it." She didn't wait for a response, just grabbed her coat and left. In the car, she pulled up the transaction history herself, looked at every purchase Derek Hayes had made with unlimited money, read them like a story. Children's multivitamins, cold medicine, winter coat, size 6, books, strawberries, milk, eggs. 3 nights at the Red Line Motel, $48 per night. Crackers, peanut butter, coffee. That was it for him. That was all. She'd given him everything, and he'd chosen nothing. Or no, that wasn't right. He'd chosen something, had chosen his son over himself, over his health, over his survival, had made that choice so completely that it nearly killed him, and she'd watched it happen. Camille stared out the window at the city sliding past, the city she owned pieces of, the city she was reshaping according to her vision, the city that contained people like Derek Hayes, who broke themselves trying to protect the people they loved. The experiment was over. She just didn't know what the results meant yet. The Mercedes pulled up to County General 23 minutes later. Camille got out before it fully stopped. Time to face what she'd done. County General smelled like disinfectant and desperation. Camille had been in hospitals before. Charity galas, ribbon cuttings for new wings her foundation had funded, photo ops with smiling administrators. But she'd never really been in one. Not like this. Not walking through the ER entrance past people bleeding into gauze, past a woman crying into a phone, past all the raw machinery of suffering that money usually kept at arm's length. The elevator took forever. Fourth floor, ICU. Marcus was waiting by the nurse's station, looking uncomfortable in a way she'd never seen him look. He was always composed, always professional. Right now he looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. "Where is he, Camille?" Camille asked. "Room 447. But, Ms. Laurent, before you go in there, you should know." "Know what?" "Social services is already involved. They're talking about taking the kid. There's a woman from Child Protective Services in there right now, and she's—" Camille didn't wait for the rest. She walked past him, heels clicking on linoleum, until she found 447. The door was half open. She could hear voices inside. "Understand that this is for Evan's safety," a woman was saying. Professional voice, the kind that's been trained to sound sympathetic while delivering bad news. "Your father is very sick. He needs to focus on getting better. You need to be somewhere stable." "I want to stay with him." That was Evan, quiet but firm. "I know you do, sweetie, but right now that's not what's best for—" Camille pushed the door open. 3 people turned to look at her. A woman in her 40s with a CPS badge clipped to her belt. A nurse checking an IV line. And Evan, sitting in a plastic chair that was too big for him, wearing the blue coat Derek had bought him, looking like he hadn't slept. Beyond them, in the bed, Derek Hayes lay connected to machines that beeped and hummed and measured things Camille didn't understand. He was unconscious. Looked worse than unconscious. Looked like he was barely there. "I'm sorry," the CPS woman said. "This is a private conversation. You'll need to—" "I'm Camille Laurent." The woman's expression shifted. Recognition, then confusion, then calculation. "I know who you are, Ms. Laurent, but unless you're family, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. I'm paying for his medical care. That's very generous, but it doesn't give you the right to, and I'm prepared to take full financial responsibility for both of them. Housing, food, medical expenses, education, whatever they need." The CPS woman stared at her. "Miss Laurent, I appreciate the offer, but this isn't a matter of finances. This is about the child's welfare. His father is in critical condition. There's no mother in the picture, no other family we can locate. Evan needs to be placed with strangers?" Camille cut her off. "Shuffled into the foster system? Separated from his father while he's fighting for his life? It's not ideal, but I'm offering an alternative." "And what alternative is that?" Camille hadn't planned this, hadn't thought it through. But standing there looking at Evan, this kid who'd watched his father collapse, who'd called 911, who was now facing the prospect of losing everything, she heard herself say, "They can stay with me." The room went silent. The CPS woman recovered first. "I'm sorry, what?" "I have resources, space. I can provide a stable environment while Derek recovers. Evan won't have to leave his father. And when Derek is discharged, they'll have somewhere to go." "Miss Laurent, that's not how this works. We have protocols, procedures. We can't just hand over a child to someone who can actually help." Camille's voice was sharper than she intended. "Look at the situation. His father is here because he was starving himself to feed his son, because he had nothing. I'm offering them something. Are you really going to let bureaucracy stand in the way of that?" The nurse had stopped pretending to check the IV. She was watching this play out like it was a tennis match. The CPS woman took a breath. Reset. "It's not about bureaucracy. It's about Evan's safety. I don't know you. I don't know your home situation. I don't know if you're equipped to take care of a traumatized 6-year-old who just watched his father nearly die. Then evaluate me. Do a home study. Whatever you need to do. But don't take him away from here. Not now." "Ms. Laurent, please." The word hung there. Camille Laurent didn't say please, didn't beg, didn't ask for things she could simply buy. But this wasn't something she could buy. This was a kid sitting in a hospital chair, trying not to cry, trying to be brave while his whole world fell apart. The CPS woman looked at Evan, then at Derek, then back at Camille. "I'll need to make some calls," she said finally. "And this is temporary, very temporary. If I have any concerns, any at all, Evan goes into protective custody immediately. Understood? Understood. I'll be back in an hour. She left. The nurse followed, giving Camille a look that might have been approval or might have been warning. Then it was just Camille and Evan and the unconscious man between them. Evan hadn't moved, hadn't said anything, just sat there in that too big chair, hands folded in his lap, staring at his father. Camille walked over, pulled up another chair, sat down. Hi, Evan. Hi. Do you remember me? You gave us the credit card. That's right. Silence. The machines beeped. Somewhere down the hall, someone was laughing about something. The sound felt obscene. Is he going to die? Evan asked quietly. No, Camille said. Then, more honestly, I don't know. The doctors are doing everything they can. He stopped eating. I didn't notice at first. He said he wasn't hungry, but he stopped eating. Evan's voice was flat, factual, like he was reporting weather. It's my fault. No, it's not. I should have noticed. Evan, you're 6 years old. You're not supposed to have to notice things like that. I'm 7. Sorry, 7. And I'm supposed to notice because it's just us. It's always been just us. Camille didn't know what to say to that, didn't have a script for this. She negotiated billion-dollar deals, managed portfolios, made decisions that affected thousands of people. But sitting here with a 7-year-old who was trying not to fall apart, she had no idea what to do. Where's your mother? She asked. Dead, car accident. I was too. I'm sorry. Evan shrugged. I don't remember her. Dad says she was nice. I'm sure she was. More silence. Derek's chest rose and fell, but barely. The ventilator was doing most of the work. Why did you give him the card? Evan asked suddenly. What? The credit card? Why did you give it to him? Honest question, deserved an honest answer. Because I wanted to see what he'd do with it, Camille said. That's mean. Yes, it was. Evan looked at her directly for the first time. His eyes were brown, serious, older than they should be. Are you going to take it back now? No. Why not? Because your father proved something I didn't expect him to prove. What? Camille looked at Derek, at this man who'd nearly killed himself rather than spend money on his own survival, who'd used unlimited resources to buy his son vitamins and books and strawberries and bought himself crackers. That some people don't think about themselves first, she said, even when they should. Evan nodded like this made perfect sense to him, like self-sacrifice was just normal behavior. Maybe for him it was. Maybe he'd watched his father do this his whole life. The door opened. A doctor came in, young, tired, wearing scrubs that had coffee stains on them. He glanced at the chart, then at Derek, then at Camille. Are you family? Friend? Camille lied. I'm his son, Evan said. The doctor's expression softened. Hey, buddy, I'm Dr. Reeves. I'm taking care of your dad. Is he going to be okay? We're doing everything we can. He's stable right now, which is good. But he's very sick. His body basically ran out of fuel. He's malnourished, dehydrated, and his electrolytes are all over the place. We're giving him fluids and nutrients through the IV. But it's going to take time. How much time, Camille? Camille asked. Hard to say. Few days at least. Maybe longer. And when he wakes up, he's going to be weak. Really weak. He's going to need time to recover. What does he need? Long term? Dr. Reeves looked at her like he was trying to figure out the relationship. Food, regular meals, somewhere stable to live. Less stress would be good, but he glanced at Derek's chart. Given his situation, I'm not sure that's realistic. It could be, Camille said, if he had resources. Laurent. Miss Laurent, I'm not sure what you're offering, but this man needs more than money. He needs support, structure, probably therapy. He's been living in survival mode for so long that his body literally forgot how to take care of itself. What if he had all of that? Then he'd have a fighting chance. Dr. Reeves checked something on one of the machines, made a note on the chart, and left. Camille sat there, turning the problem over in her mind like she would any other challenge. Derek needed resources. She had resources. Simple equation, except it wasn't simple. Nothing about this was simple. Marcus appeared in the doorway. Miss Laurent? The CPS investigator's back. She wants to talk to you. Camille stood, looked at Evan. I'll be right back, okay? Chichquat. Okay. She followed Marcus into the hallway. The CPS woman was there, along with a man in a suit who introduced himself as her supervisor. We've made a decision, the woman said. Evan can stay with you temporarily, and I want to emphasize temporarily, while we complete a full investigation. You'll need to undergo a background check, home inspection, and interview. If anything raises red flags, this arrangement ends immediately. Understood. I'll need your address. Camille gave it, watched the woman's eyebrows go up slightly. The Presidio Tower? The penthouse? Yes. That's quite a place for a child. It has room. It's safe, and it's better than a group home. The supervisor stepped in. Ms. Laurent, I want to be clear about something. This isn't adoption. This isn't guardianship. This is temporary emergency placement. When Derek Hayes recovers, assuming he recovers, Evan goes back to him. I understand. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, this looks like a very wealthy woman deciding to play savior. And I've seen that before. It doesn't usually end well. Camille met his eyes. I'm not playing anything. I'm trying to help. Why? Good question. She'd been asking herself the same thing. Because I made this worse, she said finally. I gave Derek that card as an experiment. I wanted to see what he'd do. And what he did was almost kill himself trying to prove something to me. So now I'm going to make it right. The supervisor studied her for a long moment. We'll see, he said finally. The home inspection happens tomorrow, 9 a.m. Don't be late. They left. Marcus was still standing there, looking concerned. Miss Laurent, are you sure about this? Taking in a child you don't know? The liability alone. Cancel my meetings for the rest of the week. All of them? All of them. But the Riverside vote is, push it. Ms. Laurent, Marcus. She stopped, looked at him. I nearly killed a man because I wanted to see how desperate people behave. I'm taking a week off. Handle it. She went back into room 447. Evan was exactly where she'd left him. Same position, same expression, like he was afraid to move. Okay, Camille said. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to come stay with me for a while, just until your dad gets better. Is that okay? Evan looked at his father. Can I visit him? Every day. Promise? Promise. Okay. Camille had expected more questions, resistance maybe, but Evan just nodded and stood up. Do you have anything you need to get? From where were you staying? The motel, room 14. Our stuff is there. Marcus will get it. Marcus, who was still hovering in the doorway, looked startled. I will? Yes, get their things, bring them to my place. Ms. Laurent, I'm your executive assistant, not a $5,000 bonus, cash, today. Marcus's objection died. I'll have everything there within the hour. Camille turned back to Evan. Ready? Can I say goodbye first? Of course. She stepped back, gave him space. Evan walked to the bed, stood there looking at his father, this man who was barely breathing, who'd sacrificed everything, who was fighting just to stay alive. Dad, Evan said quietly, I have to go for a little while, but I'm going to come back tomorrow, and the next day. Every day until you wake up, so you have to wake up, okay? You have to. Derek didn't respond, couldn't respond. The machines beeped their steady rhythm. Evan reached out, touched his father's hand. I love you, he said. Then he stepped back, wiped his eyes, turned to Camille. Okay, I'm ready. They walked to the elevator, rode it down in silence, walked through the ER, past all the chaos and pain, out into the late afternoon cold. Camille's Mercedes was waiting. The driver opened the door. Evan stopped, stared at the car. What's wrong? Camille asked. I've never been in a car like this. It's just a car. It's really not. They got in. The leather was soft, The heat was on. Classical music played quietly from speakers Evan probably couldn't even see. He sat very still, hands in his lap, not touching anything. "You can relax," Camille said. "I don't want to mess anything up." "You won't." But he stayed rigid anyway. They drove through the city. Evan watched the buildings go by, the neighborhoods change, from the hospital district to downtown, to the financial center to the residential towers where people like Camille lived. The Presidio Tower rose 48 stories, glass and steel and architectural significance. The doorman opened the car door before it even fully stopped. "Ms. Laurent, welcome back." "Thank you, James." Inside, the lobby was all marble and modern art, and the kind of quiet that only money can buy. Evan's footsteps echoed. He looked around like he'd walked into a museum. They took the elevator to the top floor. Camille's penthouse took up the entire 48th floor. The doors opened directly into her living room. Evan stepped out, stopped, stared. Floor-to-ceiling windows showing the entire city. Furniture that looked expensive because it was. Art on the walls that Evan wouldn't recognize, but that auction houses would kill for. Space. So much space. "This is where you live?" he asked. "Yes." "By yourself?" "Yes." "It's really big." "It is." Evan walked forward slowly, looking at everything, not touching, just looking. "You can touch things," Camille said. "It's fine." "Are you sure?" "Evan, you're going to be living here. You have to touch things." He nodded but still didn't touch anything. Camille showed him the guest room, king bed, private bathroom, its own sitting area, probably bigger than anywhere Evan had ever lived. "This is yours," she said. Evan stood in the doorway. "Just mine?" "Just yours." "Where will you sleep?" "My room is on the other side of the apartment." "That's really far." "There's an intercom. If you need anything, just press this button." She showed him the panel by the bed. "I'll hear you." He nodded. "Are you hungry?" Camille asked. "I don't know." "When's the last time you ate?" "This morning, I think, at the hospital cafeteria." "What did you have?" "Crackers." Of course he did. Like father, like son. "Come on," Camille said. "Let's get you some real food." They went to the kitchen. Camille stood there, looking at the Sub-Zero refrigerator and the 6-burner range and the marble countertops, and realized she had no idea what to feed a 7-year-old. She could negotiate 8-figure deals, could read a balance sheet in seconds, could spot a bad investment from across the room. But cooking? For a kid? She pulled out her phone, ordered food from 3 different restaurants, Italian, Chinese, American. Figured something would work. While they waited, Evan sat at the kitchen island, looking small and lost. "What grade are you in?" Camille asked. "I was in 1st grade. Before." "Before what?" "Before we lost the apartment." "How long ago was that?" 4 months. Maybe 5. "You haven't been in school since then?" "Dad teaches me stuff, reading and math. We go to the library when we can." Camille made a mental note. School. Add that to the list. The food arrived. Way too much food. Camille spread it out on the dining room table, a table that sat 12 that she usually ate at alone. Evan looked at it like she'd laid out a feast. "Take whatever you want," she said. He took small portions. 1 piece of pizza, some rice, a spring roll. "That's all? I'm not that hungry." "Evan, I'm not." But his stomach growled, betraying him. Camille recognized the pattern. Derek had done the same thing, limiting himself, even when there was plenty. "Listen to me," she said. "There's enough food here for 10 people. You're not taking anything away from anyone. Eat." "But no buts. Eat. As much as you want. That's the rule now." He looked at her, then at the food, then took another slice of pizza. They ate in silence. Camille watched him eat slowly, carefully, like he was still expecting someone to take it away. After dinner, Marcus arrived with their things from the motel. 2 garbage bags. That was it. Everything Derek and Evan owned fit into 2 garbage bags. "Where do you want these?" Marcus asked. "Guest room." Evan followed them, watched Marcus set the bags down. "Is this everything?" Camille asked. From the motel room, yes. Should I? Is there somewhere else? No, Evan said quietly. This is everything. Marcus left. Camille helped Evan unpack the blue coat, the gloves, the books Derek had bought, some clothes, the medicine, the vitamins. At the bottom of one bag, wrapped in a t-shirt, was a photograph in a cracked frame. A woman, young, smiling, holding a baby. That's my mom, Evan said, and me. She's beautiful. Dad says I look like her. Camille looked at the photo, then at Evan. He's right. They finished unpacking. Camille showed Evan how the shower worked, where the towels were, how to adjust the temperature. Do you need anything else? She asked. No, thank you. Okay, I'll be in my office if you need me. Remember, just press the intercom. Okay. Camille started to leave, stopped, turned back. Evan, your dad is going to be okay. I promise. It was a promise she had no business making, no way to guarantee, but she said it anyway. Evan nodded. Can we go see him tomorrow? First thing in the morning. Thank you. She left him there, walked back through her too-big apartment to her office, sat down at her desk. Her phone had 17 missed calls, 43 emails. The Riverside project was imploding without her. The zoning board was stalling. Investors were getting nervous. She ignored all of it. Instead, she pulled up Derek's file, the transaction history she'd been monitoring. Looked at it again, really looked at it, and saw it differently now. This wasn't data, wasn't numbers on a screen. This was a man making choices that revealed more about him than any background check ever could. Children's vitamins, books, strawberries. She'd given him a test, and he'd passed. But the passing had nearly killed him. Camille sat there in her office, surrounded by the evidence of her success, and felt something she hadn't felt in years. Shame. She'd turned a man's desperation into an experiment, had watched him suffer to satisfy her curiosity, had been so detached from actual human struggle that she'd treated it like research. And now she had his son sleeping in her guest room and his life in her hands, and absolutely no idea what she was doing. Her phone buzzed. Text from Marcus. Reporters are calling about Derek Hayes. Someone leaked that you're involved. How do you want me to handle? She typed back. No comment on anything. And Marcus? Yes? Find the best doctors. I don't care what it costs. Derek Hayes gets whatever he needs. Understood. She put the phone down, looked out at the city lights. Somewhere out there in a hospital bed, Derek Hayes was fighting for his life. And Camille Laurent was responsible. She'd make it right. Had to. Even if she didn't know how yet. The CPS investigator showed up at 8:55 the next morning. Early. Probably on purpose. Camille was ready anyway. She'd been awake since 5, drinking coffee and trying to remember the last time she'd been nervous about anything. The woman's name was Patricia Moreno. Mid-40s, carrying a worn leather bag and an expression that said she'd seen every trick in the book. Ms. Laurent, she said when Camille opened the door. Thank you for making time. Of course. Patricia stepped inside. Her eyes went immediately to the windows, the view, the art. Her face gave away nothing, but Camille could guess what she was thinking. Too much, too sterile, not a place for a child. Where's Evan? Patricia asked. Still sleeping. We got back from the hospital late last night. You took him to see his father? I promised I would. Patricia made a note in a small tablet. How did that go? Derek's still unconscious. Evan sat with him for 2 hours. Talked to him. Read him one of his books. Another note. And how is Evan adjusting here? It's been less than 24 hours. He's quiet, careful, doesn't touch anything unless I tell him it's okay. That's concerning. Why? Because it suggests he doesn't feel safe. Children who feel safe explore. They make noise. They test boundaries. Camille hadn't thought of it that way. He's been through trauma. Of course he's cautious. I understand that, but my job is to determine if this environment is helping or hurting. Patricia walked through the living room, checking corners, looking at surfaces. Tell me about your experience with children. I don't have any. Nieces? Nephews? Friends with kids? No. So you have no practical experience raising a child. I have resources. I can hire help. Money isn't the same as care, Ms. Laurent. I know that. Patricia stopped, turned to face her. Do you? Because from my perspective, you're a single woman with a demanding career who just decided to take in a traumatized 7-year-old. No preparation, no training, just what? Guilt? The word hit harder than it should have. I'm trying to help. Camille said evenly. Why? I already explained that. Explain it again. Camille took a breath. I gave Derek Hayes access to unlimited money as an experiment. I wanted to see what a desperate person would do with resources. And what he did was nearly starve himself to death taking care of his son. So yes, I feel responsible. And yes, I'm trying to fix it. By taking in his child, by giving them both a chance. Patricia wrote something down. Show me where Evan sleeps. They walked to the guest room. Evan's door was open. He was awake, sitting on the bed in the clothes he'd slept in, looking small against the massive headboard. Good morning, Evan, Patricia said. Hi, Ms. Moreno. You remember me from yesterday? Yes. Can I come in? Okay. Patricia sat in the chair by the window. Camille stayed in the doorway. How are you doing? Patricia asked. Okay. Are you comfortable here? Evan glanced at Camille, then back at Patricia. Yes. Ms. Laurent is treating you well? She got me pizza last night, and Chinese food, and pasta. That's a lot of food. She said I could have whatever I wanted. And did you? Evan hesitated. Some. Patricia leaned forward slightly. Evan, I need you to be honest with me. Do you feel safe here? Yes. Are you sure? Because if you don't, if you're scared or uncomfortable, you can tell me. I'm not scared. What are you then? Evan looked down at his hands, worried about my dad. That makes sense. Anything else? I don't want to mess anything up. Mess what up? Miss Laurent's house. It's really nice. Everything is really nice. I don't want to break anything. Patricia glanced at Camille and something passed between them. An understanding, maybe, or an indictment. Evan, Patricia said gently, this isn't a museum. If Ms. Laurent is letting you stay here, you're allowed to live here, okay? Okay. Can I see your room? Evan stood, showed her where his things were, the 2 garbage bags, the books, the photograph of his mother. Patricia picked up the frame carefully. This is beautiful. Is this you? When I was a baby, you look like her. That's what everyone says. Patricia set the frame down, asked a few more questions. Normal stuff. What Evan liked to do. What he missed about school. Whether he had friends. His answers were short, guarded. The answers of a kid who'd learned that adults asking questions usually meant something bad was coming. After 20 minutes, Patricia stood. Thank you, Evan. I'm going to talk to Miss Laurent for a few minutes, okay? You did great. Am I leaving? The question broke something in Camille's chest. Not today, Patricia said, but I'll be checking in. Is that okay? Evan nodded. They went back to the living room. Patricia closed her tablet. He's a good kid, she said. I know. He's also terrified. Of what? Of losing his father, of being sent away, of doing something wrong that makes you change your mind. Patricia paused. Ms. Laurent, I'm going to be honest with you. This setup makes me uncomfortable. You have no experience, no support system, no understanding of what it takes to care for a traumatized child. But what? But Evan wants to stay. And the alternative is a group home where he won't be able to see his father every day. So for now, I'm approving the placement, temporarily. Camille felt something loosen in her chest. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I'll be doing weekly check-ins. If I see any signs that this isn't working, if Evan seems more distressed, if his needs aren't being met, if you're overwhelmed, I'm pulling him. Clear? Clear. And Ms. Laurent, get help. Hire a child psychologist. Maybe a nanny who has actual experience. You can't do this alone. I will. Patricia left. Camille stood in her living room looking at the closed guest room door and realized she had absolutely no idea what to do next. She settled on breakfast. Kids needed breakfast, right? She went to the kitchen, opened the fridge, stared at its contents like they were written in a foreign language. Yogurt, fruit, some kind of imported cheese she couldn't pronounce. Nothing a 7-year-old would want. She called the building's concierge. I need breakfast for a child, 7 years old. What kind of breakfast would you like, Ms. Laurent? I don't know. What do children eat? A pause. Pancakes? Cereal? Eggs? All of it. Send all of it. 20 minutes later, a cart arrived loaded with enough breakfast food to feed a small army. Pancakes, waffles, 3 types of cereal, scrambled eggs, bacon, sausage, hash browns, fruit, juice, milk. Camille knocked on Evan's door. Breakfast is here. He came out slowly, saw the spread on the dining table, stopped. What's wrong? Camille asked. That's a lot of food. I wasn't sure what you liked. You didn't have to. Evan, stop. Just eat something, please. He took a waffle, some fruit, sat at the table that was designed for business dinners and high-stakes negotiations, and ate quietly while Camille pretended to check email on her phone. Miss Laurent? He said after a few minutes. You can call me Camille. Camille, can we go see my dad? She checked the time, 9:40. Yes, let's go. The drive to County General was quiet. Evan sat in the back seat, looking out the window, and Camille wondered what he was thinking, if he understood any of this, if he blamed her. At the hospital, they took the elevator to the 4th floor. Derek was still in 447, still unconscious, but some of the machines had been removed. That had to be a good sign. Dr. Reeves was there, checking the chart. Any change? Camille asked. He's stable. Vitals are improving. We're reducing sedation. He should wake up in the next day or 2. Should? Medicine isn't an exact science, Ms. Laurent, but he's moving in the right direction. Evan climbed into the chair next to the bed. Same chair as yesterday. He'd probably sit in that chair every day until Derek woke up. Can he hear me? Evan asked. We think so, Dr. Reeves said. Studies show that comatose patients often respond to familiar voices. So yes, talk to him. It might help. Evan nodded, reached out and took his father's hand. Hi, Dad, it's me. I'm staying with Ms. Laurent. Well, Camille. She says I can call her Camille. Her apartment is really big. Really, really big. And there's a lot of food. She got me waffles this morning. And strawberries. Remember the strawberries? Camille stepped back, gave them space. She stood in the hallway, watching through the window, feeling like an intruder. Marcus appeared beside her. She hadn't heard him approach. The press is getting worse, he said quietly. They want a statement. There are already 3 articles speculating about your relationship with Derek Hayes. What are they saying? That you're either having an affair, conducting some kind of social experiment, or trying to buy good publicity. None of those are true. Doesn't matter. The story is out there. Camille rubbed her temples. Tell them it's a private matter. No further comment. They won't let it go. Then they won't let it go. I have bigger problems. Marcus hesitated. The board is asking questions about Riverside, about your priorities. Robert Chen called this morning. He wants to know if you're still committed. Tell him I am. Are you? She looked at him sharply. What kind of question is that? An honest one. You've missed 5 meetings this week. The zoning vote is in 3 days. If you're not there to push this through, I'll be there. Will you? Camille didn't answer because she didn't know. 3 days ago, Riverside was all that mattered. 18 million square feet, 37% ROI. Her legacy project, the development that would define her career. Now, it felt like numbers on a spreadsheet. Abstract, unimportant. I'll handle it, she said finally. You worry about the press. I'll worry about Chen. Marcus nodded and left. Camille went back into the room. Evan was reading to his father, one of the books Derek had bought him, Something about a bear and a boy. His voice was soft, steady. He stumbled over some of the bigger words, but he kept going. When he finished the chapter, he looked up at Camille. "Can we stay a little longer?" "We can stay as long as you want." They stayed for 3 hours. Evan read 2 more books, drew a picture, told his father about the apartment, about breakfast, about the view from his window. Derek didn't respond, didn't move, but the heart monitor kept beeping its steady rhythm. Around 2, a nurse came in. "Visiting hours are over soon." Evan's face fell. "Already?" "We can come back tomorrow," Camille said. "Promise?" "I promise." In the car on the way back, Evan was quiet, staring out the window, processing something. "Are you okay?" Camille asked. "He looks so small." "What?" "My dad. In the hospital. He looks small. He's not supposed to look small." Camille didn't know what to say to that. Didn't have words for the way children saw their parents, the way they needed them to be invincible. Back at the apartment, Evan went straight to his room. Camille heard the door close, heard silence. She stood in the hallway, debating whether to check on him or give him space. Settled on space. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. "Hello?" "Miss Laurent, this is Sarah Chen from the Tribune. I was hoping to ask you a few questions about Derek Hayes." "No comment." "Just a few questions. Our readers are very interested in—" Camille hung up, blocked the number. Her phone rang again immediately. Different number, same thing. By the time she'd blocked 6 numbers, she gave up and turned the phone off. She made dinner. Or tried to. Ordered dinner. Thai food this time, set it out on the table, knocked on Evan's door. "Not hungry," he called. "You need to eat something." "I ate at the hospital." "Evan? Please, I just want to be alone." Camille stood there, hand on the doorknob, and realized she didn't have the right to push. Didn't have the relationship. She was a stranger in a nice apartment who'd inserted herself into this kid's life. She ate alone, put the leftovers in the fridge, tried to work. The emails from her office were frantic. The Riverside deal was falling apart. The mayor's office was backing out. Investors were threatening to pull funding. Everything she'd spent 2 years building was collapsing. She should care, should be making calls, pulling strings, fixing it. Instead, she sat at her desk and stared at the transaction history from Derek's card. Read it like a biography, like evidence of who he was. Her intercom buzzed, Evan's voice small and scared. "Camille?" She pressed the button. "I'm here." Can you come here?" She went to his room. He was sitting on the bed, still in his clothes, eyes red. "What's wrong?" she asked. "I keep thinking about him alone in that hospital. What if he wakes up and I'm not there? What if he's scared?" "The nurses are there, the doctors. He's not alone. But I should be there." "Evan, you can't stay at the hospital 24 hours a day." "Why not?" "Because you're 7. You need sleep. You need to eat. You need to be somewhere safe. I was safe with him." "I know. But right now this is where you need to be." Evan wiped his eyes. "I don't understand why this happened. He was being so careful. He was using the card for food and medicine and everything we needed. Why did he get sick?" Camille sat on the edge of the bed. "Because he wasn't using it for himself." "What do you mean?" "He bought things for you, medicine for you, food for you, clothes for you, but nothing for himself. That's not true. He got peanut butter. And that's all he ate. For days, while he made sure you had everything." Evan went very still. "That's my fault." "No." "If I hadn't needed stuff, if I'd noticed he wasn't eating—" "Evan, stop. This isn't your fault. Your dad made choices. Those were his choices, not yours." "But he loves you. That's what this is. He loves you so much that he forgot to take care of himself. That's not your fault. That's just what parents do." "Do you have kids?" "No." "Then how do you know?" "Fair question." Camille didn't have an answer. "I just know," she said finally. They sat there in silence. Outside the windows, the city was lighting up. 48 floors below, people were living their lives, going to dinner, heading home, existing in a world that made sense. "Camille?" Evan said quietly. Yeah? Thank you for letting me stay here, for taking me to see my dad. You don't have to thank me. I want to. She looked at this kid, this too thin, too serious, too brave kid who'd been through more than most adults, and felt something shift inside her, something unfamiliar and uncomfortable and real. You're welcome, she said. She left him to sleep, went back to her office, turned her phone back on. 32 missed calls, 67 emails, 3 voicemails from Robert Chen, each one more urgent than the last. She called him back. Camille, finally, where have you been? Dealing with something. Well, deal with this. The mayor is pulling support for Riverside, says the optics are bad. Something about displacing families. I need you to fix this. I can't right now. What do you mean you can't? This is our project, your project. If we don't get this vote, then we don't get the vote. Silence. Are you serious? Robert, I have to go. Camille, if you walk away from this, if you let this fall apart, the board will what? Fire me? Fine, fire me. You built this company. I know what I built. Then act like it. She hung up, turned the phone off again, sat in the dark, looking at the city, and wondered when everything had changed, when the deals stopped mattering, when the numbers stopped being enough. She knew the answer. It was when she'd watched a man nearly die because she'd turned his life into a game. 3 days later, Derek woke up. Camille got the call at 6 a.m. Dr. Reeves, professional voice with an edge of excitement. He's awake, conscious, asking for his son. She got Evan up. Didn't tell him yet. Didn't want to build hope in case something went wrong. Just said they were going to the hospital early today. In the car, Evan was quiet, same as every morning. He'd settled into a routine. Wake up, breakfast, hospital, sit with his father, talk to him, read to him, come home, dinner, bed, repeat. Patricia Moreno had come by twice. Both times she'd seemed surprised that things were working, that Evan was eating, that he smiled sometimes, that Camille hadn't given up. Camille had hired a child psychologist, Dr. Andrea Walsh. Evan saw her 3 times a week. Camille didn't know what they talked about. Privacy rules. But Dr. Walsh said he was processing, said he was resilient, said he'd be okay. Camille wasn't sure she believed it, but she was trying. They got to the hospital, took the elevator up. 4th floor. Room 447. The door was open. Camille could hear voices inside. They walked in. Derek was sitting up, awake, pale and thin and hooked up to IVs, but awake. His eyes were open. He was talking to Dr. Reeves. Then he saw Evan. His face changed. Everything changed. Evan stood frozen in the doorway, like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Dad? Yeah, buddy, it's me. Evan moved, fast, ran to the bed. Derek opened his arms and Evan crashed into him, and Derek held on like he'd never let go. I thought you were going to die, Evan said into his father's shoulder. I'm okay. You weren't eating. You got sick. They said you were really sick. I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Dr. Reeves caught Camille's eye, gestured to the hallway. They stepped out. He's weak, the doctor said. Very weak. It's going to be a long recovery, physically and probably mentally. He needs nutrition counseling, therapy, and a stable living situation. Can you provide that? Yes. I'm serious, Miss Laurent. If he goes back to the streets, if he ends up in the same situation, this will happen again, probably worse. He won't. I'll make sure of it. How? I'm working on it. Dr. Reeves looked skeptical, but nodded. He wants to talk to you. Camille went back inside. Evan was still pressed against his father. Derek's hand was on his son's head. He looked at Camille over Evan's shoulder. Thank you, he said. For what? For taking care of him. Marcus told me about everything. You don't have to thank me. Yeah, I do. Evan pulled back, wiped his eyes. I've been staying at Camille's apartment. It's really nice, Dad. There's windows everywhere and you can see the whole city. That sounds amazing. And she takes me here every day, every single day. She promised. Derek's eyes met Camille's again. Something passed between them. Understanding, maybe, or reckoning. Can I talk to Ms. Laurent alone for a minute? Derek asked. Evan hesitated. Are you going to disappear again? No, I promise, just 5 minutes. Okay. Evan went to the hallway, stood where he could still see his father through the window. Derek waited until the door closed. Then, why? Why what? Why are you doing this? The hospital. The care. Taking Evan in. I know what this place costs. I know what you're paying for. Does it matter? Yeah, it matters. Camille pulled up a chair, sat down. I gave you that card to see what you do with it. I wanted to prove something, that people are predictable, selfish, that given resources, they'd waste them. And you proved me wrong. You used it for your son, nothing for yourself. And it nearly killed you. Derek looked away. I wasn't trying to prove anything. I know. That's the point. So what? You feel guilty? Yes. And this is you fixing it? I'm trying to. Derek laughed. It was bitter. Lady, you can't fix this. You can't just throw money at it and make it go away. You don't know what it's like to have nothing, to watch your kid go hungry, to make choices between medicine and food. You're right. I don't know, but I'm learning. Why? Why do you care? Camille looked at Evan through the window. Because he deserves better than this. Better than living in fear. Better than watching his father destroy himself. And because I can actually help. For how long? What? How long does this last? Until you get bored? Until it stops being interesting? That's not... Because if you're going to pull the rug out, do it now. Don't let him get attached. Don't let him think this is permanent and then walk away. I'm not going to walk away. Everyone walks away. The words hung there, heavy with history, with pain. I'm not everyone, Camille said. Derek studied her, looking for the lie, the angle, the catch. What do you want from me? He asked finally. Nothing. There's always something. Not this time. So what? You're just going to pay for everything out of the goodness of your heart? If that's what it takes. And when I get out of here, then what? Then we figure it out. We? Derek, you can't go back to living on the streets. Not with Evan, not with your health. So yes, we figure it out. I don't need charity. This isn't charity. Then what is it? Responsibility. I made this worse. I'm going to make it better. How? I don't know yet, but I will. Derek closed his eyes. He looked exhausted, defeated. I can't keep fighting you, he said quietly. Then don't. You don't understand. I've spent my whole life trying to do things on my own, to not depend on anyone. And look where it got me. Sometimes we need help. I hate needing help. I know. He opened his eyes. If I say yes, if I let you help, I need to know it's real. That you're not going to change your mind because Evan can't handle that. He's been through too much. I won't change my mind. Promise? I promise. They sat in silence. The machines beeped. Outside the window, Evan was watching them, trying to read the conversation through body language. Okay, Derek said finally. Okay. Camille stood. Get some rest. Build your strength. We'll talk more when you're better. She opened the door. Evan came back in immediately. Everything okay? He asked. Everything's fine, Derek said. Come here. Evan climbed back onto the bed. Careful around the IVs, Derek put his arm around him. I love you, buddy. I love you too, Dad. Camille left them alone. Went to find Dr. Reeves, made arrangements, the best nutritionist, the best therapist, whatever Derek needed. In the elevator going down, her phone rang. Marcus. The board voted, he said without preamble. Riverside is dead. They pulled funding. Chen resigned. The investors are threatening legal action. Okay? Okay? That's all you have to say? What do you want me to say, Marcus? I want you to care. This was your project, your vision. Things change. You're throwing away everything you built. No, I'm building something different. What does that even mean? I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out. She hung up, walked out of the hospital into the morning cold. And for the first time in years, Camille Laurent didn't have a plan, didn't have all the answers, but she had a promise to keep, and that was enough. Derek came home 3 weeks later, not to the streets, not to a shelter, to Camille's building. A different unit, smaller than the penthouse, on the 32nd floor, but still more space than Derek had seen in years. 2 bedrooms, a real kitchen, windows that didn't rattle when the wind blew. Camille had signed a lease, put it in Derek's name, paid 6 months up front. I can't afford this, he'd said when she showed him the paperwork. You don't have to, not yet. Camille? Derek, just take it, please. You need somewhere stable. Evan needs somewhere stable. We can figure out the rest later. So he'd signed. Because what else could he do? Pride didn't keep you warm. Dignity didn't feed your kid. The apartment came furnished. Nothing fancy, but clean, functional. A couch that didn't have springs poking through. A bed that wasn't a cot. A refrigerator that Camille had stocked before they arrived. Evan ran through the rooms like it was Christmas. Dad, look! I have my own room! And there's a bathroom! A whole bathroom! Derek stood in the living room, leaning on the cane the hospital had given him, and tried to process it. A month ago, he'd been sleeping in doorways. Now he had an address. A key. A place. What do you think, Fils? Camille asked. He didn't know what to think. Didn't trust it. Didn't trust any of this. But Evan was smiling, really smiling, and that was worth something. It's good, he said. Thank you. There's a community center downstairs. They have programs for kids. And the school district is decent. I've already started the enrollment process for Evan. Did what? Oh, he needs to go back to school, Derek. He's been out for months. I know that. But you can't just... You should have asked me. You're right. I'm sorry. I should have. The apology caught him off guard. He'd expected her to argue, to explain why she knew better, but she just stood there looking uncomfortable, like she was still figuring out how to do this too. What else have you arranged without telling me? He asked. There's a job, if you want it. What kind of job? Property management, one of my buildings. Not this one. Smaller. The manager just quit. It's not glamorous, but it's steady. Salary, benefits, normal hours. Derek stared at her. You're offering me a job. Yes? Working for you. Technically working for Laurent Properties, but yes. And if I say no, then you say no. But Derek, you need income. Evan needs stability. This is a way to get both. What if I'm not qualified? You're a veteran. You managed logistics in the service. This is basically the same thing. Maintenance requests, tenant issues, budgets. You can do it. How do you know what I did in the military? I looked into your background. I needed to know who I was helping. Derek felt something cold settle in his stomach. You investigated me. I did due diligence. That's not the same thing. Derek, what else do you know? What else did you dig up? Camille met his eyes. I know you served 2 tours. I know you came back with PTSD. I know you tried to make it work. Got a job. Got an apartment. Tried to build a life. I know your wife died when Evan was 2. Car accident, drunk driver. I know you spiraled after that. Lost the job. Lost the apartment. Ended up on the streets. Derek's hands tightened on the cane. You had no right. I had every right. I'm responsible for you now, for Evan. I needed to know what I was dealing with. I'm not a project. I never said you were. Then stop treating me like one. The words came out harsher than he meant them to. Camille flinched, just slightly, but enough that he saw it. I'm sorry, she said quietly. You're right. I overstepped. They stood there in the new apartment, surrounded by furniture neither of them had chosen, trying to navigate something neither of them understood. Evan came running back. Dad, there's a park across the street. Can we go? Derek looked at his son, at the hope in his face, the joy. The first real joy he'd seen in months. Yeah, he said. We can go. Can Camille come? Derek glanced at her. If she wants to. I'd like that, Camille said. They went to the park. Derek moved slowly, still weak, still recovering. The doctors had said it would take months before he felt normal again. Might never feel completely normal. Malnutrition left scars you couldn't see. Evan ran to the playground, started climbing. Camille and Derek sat on a bench watching him. I really am sorry, Camille said after a while, for investigating you, for making decisions without asking. I'm not good at this. At what? Helping people, being involved in someone's life. I usually just write checks and walk away. Why didn't you this time? She was quiet for a long moment. Because Evan asked me to stay, and I couldn't say no. Derek watched his son swing from the monkey bars, fearless, like nothing bad had ever happened to him. Kids were resilient like that, bounced back faster than adults. The job, Derek said. What does it pay? $48,000 a year, plus benefits. Health insurance, dental, retirement matching. It was more than he'd made in years, more than he'd hoped for. And if I screw it up, then you screw it up. But I don't think you will. You don't know that. No, but I'm willing to take the chance. Derek looked at her, really looked at her. This woman who'd turned his life into an experiment and then saved it, who'd taken in his son when she didn't have to, who was offering him a future when he'd given up on having one. Okay, he said. I'll take it. Good. But I'm paying rent. Not now, I can't right now. But eventually, I pay my own way. Derek, that's the deal. I'm not a charity case. I never said you were. You didn't have to. Camille nodded. Okay, when you're ready, we'll work out rent. They sat in silence, watching Evan play. Other kids were there now. A girl about his age asked if she could play tag with him. Evan looked at Derek for permission. Derek nodded. Evan ran off with her, laughing. He seems happy, Camille said. He is. First time in a long time. What about you? What about me? Are you happy? Derek considered the question. Was he happy? He had a roof over his head, food in the fridge. His son was safe, healthy, smiling. A month ago, those things had been impossible. Now they were real. But happiness? That was more complicated. I don't know, he said honestly. Ask me in a few months. Camille's phone buzzed. She glanced at it. Her face tightened. Problem? Derek asked. My lawyer. The Riverside investors are suing. The what? A development project I was working on. It fell through. Now everyone's fighting over who's responsible. And they think it's you? It was my project, my vision. So, yes. What happens if they win? I lose money. A lot of money. More importantly, I lose credibility. Does it matter? She looked at him like he'd asked if breathing mattered. It's my reputation, my career, of course it matters. But does it matter more than this? He gestured at the park, at Evan, at the life they were trying to build. Camille didn't answer, just stared at her phone like it held answers she didn't want to hear. The first week in the apartment was harder than Derek expected. Not the apartment itself. That part was easy, almost too easy. Wake up in a real bed. Take a hot shower. Make breakfast in a kitchen that had a working stove, simple things that felt like luxuries. No, the hard part was the silence. When you lived on the streets, there was always noise, traffic, sirens, people shouting. The world didn't let you forget you existed. But here, 32 floors up, the silence was oppressive, made him think too much, remember too much. He started having nightmares again, hadn't had them in years. Too exhausted to dream when you're sleeping on concrete. But now they came back. The things he'd seen overseas, the things he'd done, the things that had broken something inside him. He'd wake up gasping, soaked in sweat, and have to remind himself where he was, that he was safe, that Evan was safe. One night, Evan heard him, came into his room, scared. Dad, are you okay? Derek forced himself to breathe normally. Yeah, buddy, just a bad dream. About what? Nothing important. Go back to bed. But Evan didn't leave, just stood there in his pajamas, looking worried. "You have them a lot," he said quietly. "Have what?" "Bad dreams. I can hear you sometimes." Derek's chest tightened. "How long?" "A while. Since before we had the apartment." "Why didn't you say anything?" Evan shrugged. "You were already worried about other stuff. I didn't want to make it worse." 7 years old. 7 years old and already trying to protect his father. "Come here," Derek said. Evan climbed into the bed. Derek put his arm around him. They sat there in the dark, two people who'd been through too much, trying to figure out how to be okay. "I'm sorry," Derek said. "For what?" "For everything. For the streets. For not being able to take care of you better. For scaring you. You took care of me fine. Evan, you did, Dad. You always made sure I had food, and you got me books, and you kept me warm. You did everything you could. I let you live in doorways. That wasn't your fault. Whose fault was it then?" Evan thought about it. Nobody's. Just things that happened. Kids had a way of simplifying things, making the complicated seem obvious. Derek wished he could see the world that way. Just things that happen. No blame, no guilt. "Try to go back to sleep," he said. "Can I stay here?" "Yeah, you can stay." They fell asleep like that. Father and son. Survivors. The job started 2 weeks later. Camille introduced him to the property manager who was leaving, a woman named Rita who'd been doing it for 15 years and was retiring to Florida. She spent 3 days showing Derek the ropes, maintenance schedules, tenant files, emergency protocols, vendor contacts. "It's not rocket science," Rita said. "Just common sense and patience. Toilets break, pipes leak. People complain. You fix what you can, call someone for what you can't, and try not to lose your mind." Sounds manageable. It is. Mostly. Just remember, tenants are people. They're not trying to make your life difficult. They just want their homes to work. Derek thought about that, about being on the other side, being the person with problems nobody wanted to deal with, being invisible. "I'll remember," he said. His first day alone was chaos. A burst pipe on the 6th floor, a broken elevator, 3 noise complaints, a tenant locked out of their apartment. By the time he got home, it was 9 at night and he was exhausted. But it was a different kind of exhaustion, not the bone-deep weariness of hopelessness, just the normal tired that came from working. Evan was already in bed. Camille was there. She'd been watching him while Derek worked. She did that now. Showed up after school, made sure Evan had dinner, helped with homework. Like it was the most natural thing in the world. "How was it?" she asked. "Insane." "Good insane or bad insane?" "Just insane. How's Evan?" "Good. We worked on multiplication tables. He's getting better." Derek wanted to thank her, wanted to tell her how much it meant that she was doing this, but the words stuck. "You don't have to keep coming here," he said instead. "I know. I can take care of him. I know that too." "Then why?" "Because I want to," Camille said simply. "Is that okay?" Derek didn't know what to say. Didn't know how to accept help without feeling like he was failing. But he was too tired to argue. "Yeah," he said. "It's okay." She left. Derek checked on Evan, still asleep, still peaceful, and then collapsed onto his own bed. He had a job, an apartment, a future. It felt wrong somehow, like he'd cheated, like he hadn't earned it. But Evan was safe, and that was what mattered. Everything else he could figure out later. 3 months in, Derek started to believe it might actually work. The job was getting easier. He'd learned the building's rhythms, knew which tenants called about everything and which ones never called at all, had a system for prioritizing repairs, had built relationships with plumbers, electricians, HVAC techs who gave him fair prices. Evan was thriving. School was good. He had friends, real friends, who came over for play dates. His teacher said he was catching up fast, reading above grade level, good at math, curious about everything. And the nightmares were getting less frequent. Not gone, but manageable. Derek had started seeing a therapist. VA benefits finally kicked in. A guy named Tom, who specialized in PTSD, They met once a week, talked about the war, about loss, about survival. "You're doing better," Tom said during one session. "Am I?" "You have stable housing, steady work, your son is safe. Those are all significant improvements." But you still don't think you deserve it." Derek looked away. "I don't know what I deserve." "That's fair. But Derek, you're allowed to have good things. You know that, right? Intellectually, maybe." "What about emotionally?" "Emotionally, I keep waiting for it to fall apart." "Why?" "Because everything else has." Tom leaned back in his chair. "Tell me about Camille Laurent." "What about her?" "She's paying for all of this. The apartment, your son's school, these sessions. How do you feel about that?" "Grateful, guilty, confused." "Why guilty?" "Because I'm using her money, her resources. I'm not standing on my own." "You have a job that she gave me. Does that make it less real?" Derek didn't answer. "Let me ask you something," Tom said. "If you could snap your fingers and make all this go away, the apartment, the job, the help, would you?" "No, of course not. Evan needs this." "What about you? Do you need it?" "That's different." "Is it?" Derek left the session with more questions than answers, par for the course with therapy. That night, Camille came over for dinner. She'd been doing that lately, once a week. She'd bring food, always too much, and they'd eat together. Her, Derek, and Evan. Like a family. Except they weren't a family. They were just three people trying to figure out what they were to each other. "How's work?" she asked while Evan was in his room doing homework. "Good. Fixed a water heater today. Felt very accomplished." "You're being sarcastic." "Only a little. It actually did feel good, fixing something, making it work again." Camille smiled. "I get that." "Do you? When's the last time you fixed something yourself?" "I fix things all the time, just bigger things, companies, deals, portfolios." "That's not the same." "No, it's not." She was quiet for a moment, then, "I lost the lawsuit." Derek looked up. "The Riverside thing?" "Yes. Jury found me negligent. I have to pay damages, $12 million. That's a lot of money." "It is, though not as much as my lawyers thought it would be." "Are you okay?" "Financially, yes. I have other investments, other projects. I'll be fine." "That's not what I meant." Camille set down her fork. "I know it's not. And honestly, I don't know. It's the first time I've lost something this big. The first time I've had to admit I was wrong." "Wrong about what?" "Riverside. I was so focused on the numbers, on the return on investment, that I didn't think about the people, the families we'd be displacing, the lives we'd be disrupting. I saw it all as just data, not real. And now? Now I see it differently. Because of you, because of Evan. You made it real." Derek didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know how to be someone's moral awakening. "I'm sorry you lost," he said finally. "I'm not. I deserve to lose." "That's a hard thing to admit." "You'd be surprised how freeing it is." They finished dinner. Camille helped clean up. She was getting better at it, less awkward with the domestic routines. Then she said goodbye and left. Derek watched her go and realized something had shifted. She wasn't his savior anymore, wasn't his benefactor. She was just a person, flawed, trying, figuring it out the same as him. Maybe that was better. Patricia Moreno came by the next week for her monthly check-in. She'd been coming regularly since Derek got out of the hospital, making sure Evan was okay, making sure Derek was okay. She sat at the kitchen table reviewing her notes. "Evan's teacher says he's doing well, making friends, participating in class." "He is," Derek confirmed. "And how are you doing?" "Better. The job is good. Therapy is helping." "You're seeing Dr. Walsh?" "Dr. Walsh sees Evan. I'm seeing someone at the VA." "Good. That's good." Patricia made another note. "I have to say, Derek, I'm impressed. I wasn't sure this arrangement would work." "You and me both. But it is working. Evan is stable. You're stable. Ms. Laurent has been supportive. She has. How do you feel about her involvement? Derek thought about it. Complicated. Can you elaborate? I'm grateful, obviously. She saved our lives, but I don't like being dependent on someone, especially someone I barely know. Do you trust her? I don't know. Maybe. She's kept her promises so far. But I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, for her to decide this isn't worth it anymore and walk away. Patricia nodded. That's understandable, given your history. My history? Everyone you've depended on has left. Your wife died. The VA failed you. The system failed you. Of course, you don't trust easily. Derek hadn't thought of it that way, but she was right. So what do I do? He asked. You keep doing what you're doing. You build your life. You take care of Evan. And if Miss Laurent leaves, you'll survive, because you're a survivor. It wasn't comforting, but it was honest. After Patricia left, Derek sat on the couch and thought about survival. He'd been doing it for so long. Surviving. Just barely making it through each day. But maybe there was more than that now. Maybe he could actually live instead of just survive. His phone rang. Camille. Hey, he said. Hey, are you busy tomorrow afternoon? I have work until 3. Why? There's someone I want you to meet. Who? A friend. Someone who might be able to help. Camille, I don't need more help. Just trust me on this, okay? He didn't. Not completely, but he said yes anyway. The next day, Camille picked him up after work, drove him to a restaurant downtown. Expensive. The kind of place Derek would never go on his own. Inside, a man was waiting at a table. Mid-50s, gray hair, suit that probably cost more than Derek made in a month. Derek Hayes, this is Michael Chen. Michael Derek. They shook hands. Derek felt underdressed, out of place. Camille tells me you're managing one of her properties, Michael said. I am. And before that? Before that, I was homeless. Michael didn't flinch. And before that? Military, logistics, 2 tours. What rank? Sergeant. Michael nodded. I run a construction company, commercial projects mostly. We're expanding, looking for someone to manage our supply chain, coordinate vendors, handle procurement. Derek looked at Camille. She was watching him carefully. I don't understand, Derek said. I'm offering you a job, Michael said simply. I have a job. A better job, more responsibility, better pay, $75,000 a year to start, room for advancement. Derek's head was spinning. Why? Because Camille vouches for you, and I trust her judgment. But you don't know me. I know your background. I know you managed complex logistics in high-pressure situations. I know you're reliable. That's enough. Michael runs a good operation, Camille added. Ethical, fair. He treats his people well. Derek sat back, tried to process this. Another opportunity, another hand up, another piece of the life he'd lost being handed back to him. I need to think about it, he said. Of course, Michael said. Take your time. Here's my card. Call me when you decide. They finished lunch. Michael left. Derek and Camille sat there in the expensive restaurant, surrounded by people who belonged. You're angry, Camille said. I'm not angry. You look angry. I'm confused. You keep doing this, setting things up, arranging my life. I'm trying to help. I know, but Camille, I need to do some things myself. I need to feel like I earned it. You did earn it. You survived. You kept Evan safe. You rebuilt. That's earning it. That's not how it feels. Then how does it feel? Derek struggled to find the words. Like I'm a project, like you're checking boxes. Housing, check. Job, check. Better job, check. What's next? Are you going to arrange my dating life too? Camille's face went red. That's not fair. Isn't it? I'm just trying to give you opportunities. I know, and I'm grateful, but I also need space to figure out who I am now, without you managing everything. They sat in tense silence. Finally, Camille said, You're right. I'm sorry. I'm overstepping again. You are. It's just, I don't know how to do this halfway. I'm used to fixing problems completely, but you're not a problem to fix. No, I'm not. So what do you want from me? Derek thought about it. Just be here, that's all. You don't have to solve everything. Just be here. I can do that. Can you? I'll try. Derek looked at Michael Chen's business card. $75,000. A real career. A chance to build something. He put the card in his wallet. I'll think about the job, he said, but I'll make the decision. Not you. Okay. And if I say no, then you say no. And we're still okay. Derek nodded. They left the restaurant. Camille drove him home. At his building, before he got out, she said, "For what it's worth, I think you'd be good at it, the job. But that's not why I arranged the meeting." "Why did you then?" "Because you deserve more than fixing toilets. You deserve a real future." "Maybe fixing toilets is enough." "Is it?" He didn't answer, just got out of the car. But that night, lying in bed, he thought about it, about what he wanted, what he deserved. And for the first time since everything fell apart, he let himself imagine having more. Derek called Michael Chen 4 days later. He'd spent those days thinking, weighing options, talking to Tom in therapy, lying awake at night staring at the ceiling. The same ceiling he'd stared at 100 times before, except now it felt different. Like it belonged to someone who had choices. "I'd like to take the job," Derek said when Michael answered. "If the offer's still open." "It is. When can you start?" "I need to give 2 weeks' notice. The building needs time to find a replacement." "That's fair. Professional. I like that." They worked out the details. Start date, benefits package, expectations. By the time Derek hung up, his hands were shaking. Not from fear, from something else. Something that felt dangerously close to hope. He told Camille that night when she came for dinner. "I took the job." She looked up from helping Evan with his homework. "Michael's job?" "Yes. That's great, Derek. Really great." But she didn't smile. Not really. There was something else in her expression, something complicated. "What's wrong?" he asked. "Nothing. I'm happy for you." "You don't look happy." "I am. Never mind. It's stupid." "Tell me." Camille glanced at Evan, who was focused on his math worksheet, then back at Derek. "I thought you'd stay at the building, keep managing it. It was working. It was. But this is better." "Better how?" "Better pay. Better opportunity. A real career instead of just a job." "And you think what you were doing wasn't real?" Derek heard the edge in her voice. "That's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean?" "I meant that I want more. Is that so wrong?" Camille stood up. "No, of course not. Excuse me." She went to the bathroom, stayed there longer than necessary. When she came back, her face was composed, professional, the mask she wore when she was pretending everything was fine. They finished dinner in awkward silence. Evan, sensing the tension, ate quickly and excused himself. After he left, Derek said, "Talk to me. There's nothing to talk about. Camille, I'm glad you took the job. I meant what I said. You deserve it." "Then why do you look like I just told you I'm moving to another country?" She sat down, stared at her hands. "Because I'm losing control." "What?" "Of this, of you, of the situation. When you were managing my building, I could keep an eye on things, make sure you were okay, make sure Evan was okay. But now you're going to work for Michael, and I won't have that anymore." Derek sat back. "You want to keep controlling my life?" "No, that's not..." She stopped. "Maybe. I don't know. I just got used to being part of this, part of your lives. And now it feels like you're pulling away." "I'm taking a better job, not leaving the planet." "I know, rationally I know that. But I'm not good at this, at relationships, at letting people be independent. We're not in a relationship." The words came out harsher than he intended. Camille flinched. "I know," she said quietly. "I didn't mean it like that." "Then how did you mean it?" "I meant friendship, partnership, whatever this is." I'm not good at it. I'm used to transactions, clear terms, defined outcomes. This is messy, and I don't know how to handle messy. Derek softened. Neither do I. But we're figuring it out. Are we? Yeah, we are. She looked at him, really looked at him, and Derek saw something in her eyes he hadn't seen before. Vulnerability. Real, raw vulnerability. I don't want to lose you, she said. Either of you. You're not losing us. I'm trying to stand on my own feet again, that's all. I understand that. Do you? I'm trying to. They sat there for a long moment. The silence wasn't comfortable, but it wasn't hostile either. Just two people trying to navigate something neither of them had a map for. Thank you, Derek said finally. For everything. For saving us. For caring. For being here. I don't say it enough, but I'm grateful. You don't have to thank me. Yeah, I do. Because you didn't have to do any of this. You could have given me that card and walked away. Could have let social services take Evan. Could have written a check and cleared your conscience. But you didn't. You stayed, and that matters. Camille's eyes were wet. She wiped them quickly, embarrassed. I'm not good at this either. The emotional stuff. I noticed. She laughed. It was shaky, but it was real. Derek gave his notice the next day. The building's owner, one of Camille's subsidiaries, wasn't happy, but they understood. Found a replacement within a week. A retired firefighter named James, who seemed competent and kind. Derek spent his last few days training James, showing him the quirks of the building, which tenants were patient, and which ones would call at 2 a.m. for a dripping faucet. Where the main water shutoff was. How to reset the circuit breakers when misses. Rodriguez on the 8th floor ran her space heater and microwave at the same time. On his last day, several tenants stopped by to say goodbye. Brought him cards. A coffee mug that said, World's Best Property Manager. A plant someone's kid had decorated with stickers. You're good at this, James said as they finished the walkthrough. Why are you leaving? Better opportunity. Must be a lot better to walk away from this. Derek looked around the maintenance office, at the pegboard full of keys, the filing cabinet full of work orders, the coffee maker that only worked if you hit it at the right angle. It wasn't much, but it had been his responsibility, his success. It is, Derek said, but this mattered too. I want you to know that. James nodded. I'll take care of it. I know you will. Derek went home. Evan was at school. The apartment was quiet. He sat on the couch and let himself feel it. The end of one chapter. The beginning of another. His phone buzzed. Text from Camille. Dinner tonight? My treat. He texted back. Your treat is always your treat. Fair point. Come anyway? Okay. She picked them up at 6. Took them to a place Derek had never been. Not fancy, but nice. The kind of restaurant where families went for birthdays. Evan ordered pasta. Derek got a burger. Camille had a salad she barely touched. You're nervous, Derek said. What makes you say that? You're shredding your napkin. Camille looked down. She'd torn the napkin into tiny pieces without realizing it. I have something to tell you, both of you. Evan looked up from his pasta. What? I'm stepping back from work, from my company. Derek set down his burger. What do you mean stepping back? I mean, I'm resigning as CEO, appointing a successor, transitioning to an advisory role. Why? Because I don't want to do it anymore. Because I spent 20 years building something that nearly cost me my humanity. Because I'd rather be here. She gestured at the table, at them. Then in another boardroom making another deal that won't matter in 5 years. Camille, that's huge. Are you sure? I'm sure. I've been thinking about it for months, since Derek collapsed, since I realized I'd turned a man's life into an experiment, since I understood that all the money and success and power didn't mean anything if I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. Evan was watching her carefully. What will you do instead? I don't know yet. Something that matters. Something real. We're real, Evan said. Camille smiled. Yes, you are. Derek didn't know what to say. This woman who'd built an empire was walking away from it. Because of them. Because they'd changed something in her. What about the lawsuits, Vets? He asked. The investors? Settled, paid what I owed, closed that chapter. I'm done with real estate development, done with displacing families to build luxury condos, done with all of it. And your board is okay with this? They don't have a choice. It's my company, my decision. Derek leaned back. So what now? Now I figure out who I am when I'm not Camille Laurent, real estate mogul. Now I try to be a better person. You're already a better person, Evan said. Thank you, sweetheart. But I have a long way to go. They finished dinner, drove home through streets that were starting to feel familiar, safe, like they belonged to Derek and Evan's story now, not just to the nightmare they'd survived. At the apartment, Evan hugged Camille goodnight. He'd started doing that lately, just started without being prompted, like it was natural. Thank you for dinner, he said. You're welcome. Sleep well. After Evan went to his room, Derek walked Camille to the door. This is a big change, he said. You sure you're ready for it? No, but I'm doing it anyway. That's brave. Or stupid. Maybe both. She smiled. Maybe. They stood there in the doorway. The hallway behind her was quiet, carpeted, climate-controlled. Nothing like the doorways Derek used to sleep in. Derek? Yeah? When I gave you that card, that first morning, I was testing you, seeing what you'd do. And I thought I knew. I thought you'd be selfish, reckless, prove everything I believed about people. But I didn't. No, you didn't. You proved me wrong. And that changed everything. I didn't mean to change anything. I know. That's why it mattered. She left. Derek closed the door, stood there thinking about change, about how it happened. Not all at once, not dramatically, just slowly, in small moments, until one day you looked around and realized everything was different. Derek started his new job on a Monday in late spring. Michael Chen's company occupied 3 floors of an office building downtown, glass and steel and the hum of productivity. Derek showed up 20 minutes early wearing a suit Camille had helped him pick out. Not too expensive, not cheap, just right for someone starting over. His office was small but real. A desk, a computer, a window that looked out at the city. His name on the door, Derek Hayes, supply chain manager. He stared at that nameplate for a solid minute before going inside. The work was challenging, complex, coordinating deliveries across multiple job sites, managing vendor relationships, negotiating prices, solving problems in real time when shipments were late or materials were wrong or budgets were tight. But Derek had done harder things, had survived worse. This was just logistics. And logistics, he understood. His team was small, 3 people who'd been doing this longer than him but who didn't resent the new boss. They were patient, helpful, willing to teach. By the end of the first week, Derek felt like maybe he could do this. Maybe he could be the person this nameplate said he was. He told Evan about it at dinner. It's good, buddy. Really good. I like the people. I like the work. Are you happy, Dad? Derek considered the question, the same question Camille had asked months ago. Was he happy? Yeah, he said. I think I am. Good. You deserve to be happy. 7 years old and already wiser than most adults. The months passed. Spring turned to summer. Evan finished second grade with straight A's and a certificate for perfect attendance. Derek got his first performance review at work, exceeded expectations across the board. Camille started volunteering at a homeless shelter, using her organizational skills to improve their operations. They still had dinner together once a week, the 3 of them. It became routine, expected, part of the rhythm of their lives. One night in July, after Evan went to bed, Camille said, I've been thinking about something. What? Starting a foundation, using my money to actually help people, not just write checks, but get involved, build programs, make a difference. What kind of programs? Housing assistance, job training, support for veterans. Everything you needed and couldn't find. Derek felt something catch in his throat. That's incredible. Would you help me? Not full time, just advising. You know what people need, what works and what doesn't. I don't know anything about running a foundation. Neither do I. We'll figure it out together.
Derek looked at her. This woman who'd started as his tormentor and become, what? Friend didn't feel like enough. Family didn't feel quite right. Something in between, something undefined. Okay, he said, I'll help. Thank you. They sat in comfortable silence, the kind of silence that only comes when you've been through something together, when you've seen each other at your worst and decided to stay anyway. Derek? Camille said after a while. Yeah? I'm sorry for the experiment, for treating you like data, for being so disconnected from reality that I thought it was okay to test someone's desperation. I know, you've apologized before. I need to say it again, because it wasn't okay, and I need you to know that I know that. I forgive you, Derek said. And he meant it, because holding on to anger was exhausting, and Camille had more than made up for her mistakes. Thank you. And Camille? I'm sorry too. For what? For being difficult. For pushing back when you were trying to help. For not trusting you. You had every right not to trust me. Maybe, but you earned it, eventually. She smiled. Eventually. 6 months later, on a cold morning that reminded Derek of the day everything changed, the foundation opened its doors. It was called Second Chances. Simple name, clear mission. Help people rebuild their lives. They'd spent months planning it, hiring staff, finding office space, setting up programs, housing assistance, job placement, mental health services. Everything Derek wished had existed when he needed it. The opening ceremony was small, just staff and a few local officials. Derek stood at the back, watching Camille give a speech about dignity and opportunity and the responsibility of those who have to help those who don't. She was good at it, better than he'd expected, genuine. No corporate speak, just honesty. After the ceremony, a reporter approached Derek. You're Derek Hayes, right? The one who inspired all this? I don't know about inspired. Ms. Laurent says you changed her life. That meeting, you made her rethink everything. How does that feel? Derek thought about it. About that frozen morning. About the credit card. About collapsing. About everything that came after. It feels like maybe something good came from something bad, he said finally. That's all. The reporter scribbled notes. One more question. What would you say to people who are where you were? Homeless? Desperate? Out of options? Derek looked at Camille across the room, at Evan, who was talking to one of the foundation staff about the computers they'd be using for job training, at the future they were building. I'd say don't give up, he said. I know that sounds simple, maybe too simple, but that's it, don't give up. Help exists, people care. Sometimes you just have to survive long enough to find them. And if they can't find help, then find each other. Look out for each other, because we're all we've got. The article ran the next day. Derek Hayes, from homeless to hope. He hated it, hated being the face of anything, but Camille said it mattered, said it showed people that change was possible. Maybe she was right. A year after Derek started his job at Michael's company, he got a promotion. Senior Supply Chain Manager, overseeing 3 teams instead of 1. Salary increased to $90,000 a year. Benefits that included college savings for dependents. He could afford his own place now. A real lease in his name, paid with his money. No help from Camille. But when he mentioned moving, Evan panicked. Why? What's wrong with where we are? Nothing's wrong. I just thought, now that I can afford it, I don't want to move. Why not? Because I like it here. My school is here. My friends are here. Camille is here. Derek sat down. Buddy, we can't stay in Camille's building forever. Why not? Because it's hers. We're just borrowing it. She said we could stay as long as we want. She said a lot of things. Are you mad at her? No, of course not. Then why do you want to leave? Derek didn't have a good answer. Because pride? Because independence? Because staying felt like admitting he still needed help? I just want to stand on my own, he said finally. Evan looked at him with those serious eyes. Dad, you are standing on your own. You have a job. You pay bills. You take care of me. Just because Camille helped doesn't mean you're not standing. When had his kid gotten so smart? Derek talked to Camille about it the next time she came over. Evan doesn't want to move. Do you?
I don't know. I feel like I should. Why? Because I can afford to now. Because staying here feels like what? Like I'm still dependent on you. Camille set down her coffee. Derek, the apartment is yours. I signed the lease over to you 3 months ago. You're paying rent, market rate. You're not dependent on me. You signed over the lease? I thought Marcus told you. No one told me. Well, now you know. It's yours. You can stay or go. Your choice. Derek felt stupid. He'd been so focused on proving he didn't need help that he hadn't noticed he'd already earned his independence. I didn't know, he said quietly. I should have told you myself. I'm sorry. Why did you do it? Because you needed to know it was real, that this isn't charity. It's just life. Your life. They decided to stay, partly because Evan wanted to, partly because Derek realized moving wouldn't prove anything except that he was still running from things. Evan turned 8, then 9, started playing soccer, made the honor roll, stopped having nightmares about sleeping in doorways. Derek's nightmares didn't stop completely, but they got better. Therapy helped. Stability helped. Having a future helped. And Camille became part of their lives in a way Derek couldn't define. Not quite family. Not just a friend. Something else. Something that worked. She dated someone for a while, a professor she met through the foundation. It didn't last. She said she wasn't good at relationships. Derek didn't argue. He dated too. A woman from work, Sarah. She was nice, patient, good with Evan. But after 6 months, they both realized it wasn't going anywhere. They stayed friends. Life became normal. Wonderfully, beautifully normal. 2 years after everything changed, Derek stood in his living room watching Evan build a robot out of Legos and realized he'd stopped waiting for things to fall apart. This was real. This was his. He'd earned it, not through suffering, but through surviving. Through choosing to keep going when giving up would have been easier. Camille was there too, sitting on the couch, pretending to read, but actually watching Evan with that soft expression she got when she thought no one was looking. What are you thinking about? Derek asked. How different everything is. Different good or different bad? Different good. Definitely good. Evan looked up from his Lego robot. Camille, do you think robots will take over the world? I hope not. But what if they do? Then we'll figure it out, just like we figure out everything else. Together? Together. Evan nodded and went back to building. Derek and Camille shared a look, a knowing look, the look of two people who'd been to hell and somehow found their way back. Later, after Evan went to bed, they sat on the balcony, 32 floors up, looking at the city lights. Do you remember that morning? Camille asked. When I gave you the card? Every detail. What were you thinking when I handed it to you? That you were insane, that it was a trap, that I shouldn't take it. But you did. Because Evan was shivering, and I was desperate, and I thought maybe, just maybe, it would help. Did it? Almost killed me. But yeah, it helped. Camille laughed. I'm sorry about that part. I know. They sat in comfortable silence. The city hummed below them. Sirens in the distance. Traffic. Life. Derek? Camille said quietly. Yeah? Thank you. For what? For letting me be part of this. Part of your life. You didn't have to. Yes, I did. You saved us. You saved me too. You just don't know it. Derek looked at her, at this woman who'd started as a stranger and become whatever she was now, essential, important, irreplaceable. I think I do know it, he said. She smiled. Good. They stayed out there until the cold drove them inside. Derek checked on Evan one more time, still sleeping, still peaceful, and then went to his own room. His phone had a message. From Tom, his therapist. Proud of you. You've come so far. Derek typed back, thanks. Couldn't have done it without help. That's growth. Recognizing you needed help and accepting it. Not everyone can do that. Derek set the phone down and looked around his room, his furniture, his space, his life. It wasn't perfect. He still struggled sometimes, still had bad days, still wondered if he deserved all this. But he was here. He was standing, and he wasn't alone. The foundation threw its first anniversary party in September. They'd helped 237 people in their first year, placed 142 in jobs, housed 98 families, provided counseling to over 300 individuals. The numbers were good, but the stories were better. Derek met some of them at the party. A woman named Jennifer, who'd been living in her car and now managed a grocery store. A veteran named Marcus, who'd struggled with addiction and was 6 months sober. A single father named Tony, who'd lost everything in a fire and now had an apartment and a job and hope. They all thanked Camille, thanked Derek, thanked the foundation. But Derek knew the truth. They'd saved themselves. The foundation just gave them tools. They did the work. During the speeches, Camille pulled Derek aside. "I need to tell you something." "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. I've been thinking about the experiment, the one I ran on you." "Camille, we've been over this." "I know, but I need to say it right. I gave you that card thinking I'd learn something about human nature, about greed and desperation, and how people behave when they suddenly have resources." "And what did you learn?" "That I was asking the wrong question. The question wasn't, what would you do with unlimited money? The question was, what would you sacrifice for the people you love? And you sacrificed everything, even yourself." "I didn't think of it as sacrifice." "I know. That's the point. You just did what you had to do. No hesitation, no calculation, just love." Derek didn't know what to say. "You taught me something," Camille continued, "about what matters, about what's real, and I need to thank you for that. You already thanked me about 100 times. Then this is 101. They went back to the party. Evan was there, talking to some of the foundation kids. He'd made friends with them, kids who understood what it was like to struggle, who didn't judge him for where he'd been. Derek watched his son laugh with them and felt something settle in his chest. Peace. Actual peace. A reporter from the Tribune approached him, the same one who'd written the first article. "Mr. Hayes, can I ask you something?" "Sure." 2 years ago, you were homeless, living on the streets with your son. Now you're here. You have a job, an apartment. You're helping run a foundation that's changing lives. How did it happen?" Derek thought about how to answer, about all the complexity, the pain, the struggle, the help, the grace. "Someone took a chance on me," he said finally. "And I took a chance on believing things could get better. That's all." "That's all?" "That's all." The reporter smiled. "Good enough for me." The article ran the next week. Second Chances, a foundation built on hope. It featured photos of Camille, Derek, and some of the people they'd helped. It talked about redemption and responsibility and the power of human connection. It went viral, got picked up by national outlets. Suddenly everyone wanted to interview Camille. Derek, the foundation. They did a few, turned down most. This wasn't about publicity, it was about the work. But the attention brought donations, lots of donations, enough to expand, to open a second location, to help more people. And with each person they helped, Derek felt a little more of his own pain ease, like he was paying forward the grace he'd been given. 3 years after that frozen morning, Derek stood in his apartment getting ready for work and realized he didn't recognize himself. Not physically, though he'd gained weight, looked healthier, had new clothes that fit, but emotionally, mentally. He was different. He wasn't the desperate man who'd taken a credit card from a stranger. He wasn't the broken veteran who couldn't hold down a job. He wasn't the father who'd failed to provide. He was just Derek, flawed, trying, human. And that was enough. Evan came out of his room, backpack on, ready for school. "Ready, Dad?" "Ready." They walked to the bus stop together. Evan was almost as tall as Derek's shoulder now, growing up fast, becoming his own person. "Dad?" Evan said as they waited. "Yeah?" "Do you ever think about how different things could have been if Camille hadn't given you that card?" Derek thought about it, about the path they'd been on, where it might have led. "Sometimes," he admitted. "Do you think we would have been okay?"
Honest question. Deserved an honest answer. I don't know, buddy. Maybe, maybe not. But we're okay now. That's what matters. Because of Camille. Because of a lot of things. Camille. You. Me not giving up. Luck. All of it. The bus came. Evan climbed on, waved through the window. Derek waved back and then walked to the subway. His commute was routine now, familiar. He knew which car was least crowded, which platform had the best cell phone signal. He knew the faces of the regular commuters. At work, his team was waiting. They had a problem. A shipment delayed. A deadline at risk. Derek listened to the details, asked questions, made decisions. This was his life now, solving problems, leading people, contributing something. After work, he met Camille at the foundation. They had a board meeting, budget review, program assessment, normal organizational things. Afterward, she said, "Want to grab dinner?" "Can't. Evan has a soccer game. Mind if I come?" "You hate soccer." "I don't hate it. I just don't understand it." "Same thing." "Derek Hayes, are you uninviting me to your son's soccer game?" He smiled. "You can come, but don't complain when you're bored." They picked up Evan and drove to the field. It was a beautiful evening, warm, clear, the kind of night that reminded you why people loved this city. Evan's team won, 3-2. Evan scored one of the goals. He ran to Derek afterward, sweaty and grinning. "Did you see it?" "I saw it. Great shot." "Camille, did you see?" "I saw it. You were amazing." They got ice cream on the way home, sat outside the shop, eating cones, talking about nothing important. This was it, Derek realized. This was the life he'd fought for. Not perfect, not easy, but real. His. That night, after Evan was asleep, Derek sat on his balcony alone. Looking at the stars, you could barely see through the light pollution. His phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. "Hello? Derek Hayes?" "Yeah, who's this?" "My name is Robert Chen. You don't know me, but I know you. I saw the article about the foundation, about your story. Okay, I'm calling because I'm in trouble. Lost my job, lost my apartment. I have 2 kids, and I don't know what to do." Derek closed his eyes, remembered being that person, being the one making desperate phone calls. "Where are you right now, Shay?" he asked. "A motel, but I can't afford another night." "Give me the address." Derek wrote it down, called Camille. She answered on the first ring. "We have someone who needs help," he said. "Tell me where." 20 minutes later, they were at the motel. Robert Chen was 34. His kids were 5 and 7. They looked scared, tired, lost. Derek knew that look. "It's going to be okay," he told Robert. "We're going to help you." "Why?" "Because someone helped me once, and now I help someone else. That's how it works." They got Robert and his kids a room at a better motel. Safe, clean, gave them vouchers for food, set up an intake appointment at the foundation for the next day. As they were leaving, Robert grabbed Derek's arm. "Thank you," he said. "Thank you. You don't have to thank me. Just, when you're on your feet again, help the next person. Okay?" "I will. I promise." In the car driving home, Camille said, "You were good with him. I've been where he is." "That's why you were good with him." Derek looked out the window at the city passing by, at all the lights representing all the lives, some struggling, some thriving, all connected somehow. "Camille?" "Yeah? And I'm glad you gave me that card. Even though it almost killed me, I'm glad." "Me too." "Why?" "Because it brought me to you, to Evan, to this, to meaning something." They drove in silence, comfortable silence, the kind that only exists between people who know each other's worst and best. At his building, Derek got out, paused before closing the door. "Same time next week?" he asked. "Dinner?" "Same time next week." He went inside, rode the elevator up, unlocked his door, checked on Evan, still sleeping peacefully. Derek stood in his living room, paid for with his money, earned through his work, and thought about how far they'd come. From a frozen sidewalk to here. from nothing to something, from desperation to hope. It hadn't been smooth, hadn't been easy. There were setbacks, struggles, days when Derek wondered if he could keep going. But he had kept going because of Evan, because of Camille, because of the stubborn refusal to let the world break him. And now he was here, not just surviving, living. He thought about Camille's experiment, about what she'd wanted to learn, about human nature and desperation and resources. She'd asked the wrong question, but maybe they'd found the right answer anyway. That people aren't just predictable, that they're capable of sacrifice and love and change. That circumstances don't define you, choices do. That help exists if you're brave enough to accept it. That redemption is possible for everyone, even the ones who think they don't deserve it. Derek's phone buzzed. Text from Tom. "How are you doing?" He typed back, "Good. Really good. Glad to hear it. You've earned it." Derek set the phone down, walked to Evan's room, stood in the doorway watching his son sleep. Everything he'd done, every choice, every sacrifice, every moment of pain had been for this. For Evan to have a childhood, a future, a chance, and they'd made it, together, with help, with grace. Derek went to his own room, lay down in his bed, in his apartment, in his life, and for the first time in years he fell asleep without wondering what tomorrow would bring, because whatever it was, he could handle it, they could handle it, all of them, together. That was enough. That was everything. The story that started with a test ended with a truth, that worth isn't measured by what you have, but by what you give. That dignity isn't found in independence, but in the courage to accept help and the grace to offer it. That sometimes the best thing you can do for someone is simply stay, be present, be real, be human. Camille had started with a question about desperation. She'd ended with an answer about love. And Derek had started with nothing and ended with everything that mattered. A home, a future, a son who was safe and happy and whole. And maybe, just maybe, proof that second chances weren't just possible. They were worth fighting for everyone.